Paul's looking to see where he is.
Trying to catch up.
You did it again.
I've only been in Summit.
Joe's down there.
I'm going to call this meeting to order if I can. Good evening. Welcome to this November 19th, 2024 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'm Joe Steiner and I chair the board, and we have got one chock full of agenda tonight, so we started I think a minute early. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In accordance with the New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's governmental channel, which is Comcast 34 and Verizon Channel 30. A transcript of this meeting is also being taken using the video and audio, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones here in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city does have a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs that hearing system, please obtain it here at the dais and return it thereafter. Ms. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Chairman Steiner.
Here.
Vice Chairman Loikitz.
Here.
Mr. Yuko.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Ms. Zahn. Here. Mr. Kieran is expected, but he's not yet present. Mr. Malay.
Here.
Ms. Toth is excused. Ms. Chifo. Here. Mr. Feskins.
Here.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you. Andy Ball is the city zoning board attorney, and he is excused this evening, and we are pleased to have Dennis Galvin as his substitute. Mr. Galvin was the board's attorney for nearly a decade. He will advise the board members on matters of law, and he, along with Mr. Ball, are the key interface with the applicant's attorneys. Mr. Galvin does not vote on the application. Stephanie Sulios, whom you just met, is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. She works with applicants on preparing applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. She also does not vote on the applications. Also present are our experts who are hired annually by the board to provide input to the board. Tonight we have Marie Raffi from Collier Engineering and Ed Snikes from Burgess Associates, our board planner. These experts are seated at the table to the right of the board, the public's left. They also do not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum 7 will be allowed to vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. And before we enter executive session to vote on an application, you will be advised how many votes are required. We have 3 large cases on our agenda tonight, and in order to facilitate the number of cases, we're going to provide an equal amount of time to each applicant this evening and then carry the case to a special meeting on December 9th. In that way, we hope to get all of these cases completed in 2024, relieving the pressure of what appears to be a jammed schedule for 2025. Each case will begin with the applicant's attorney giving an overview and update of the application process to date and the variances that are required. We then hear from additional expert witnesses that the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, the attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, we will allow the public to ask questions. This is not a time to tell us what you think about the case. That opportunity comes a little bit later. But what you can do is ask questions, and we ask you to please be careful as how you phrase your questions. They should not be preceded with a statement about the case, but should be direct questions to the witness. Also, before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, provide your address. It is important for our court reporter to be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity as promised to speak, and you can then express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. The public hearing is then closed, and we enter in what is called executive session, where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to that executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. The city zoning officer has asked that we remind the applicants that they must carefully read the resolution that documents the board's decision, and to pay particular attention to the conditions that may be contained in that resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, who is the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a city engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in an engineering division will cause all kinds of problems for the staff and will delay in the approving of your application. The resolutions documenting the board's decision are normally available 1 month after we decide a case. And we will begin tonight with 479 Morris Avenue. Hi.
All set, Mr. Chairman?
Fire away.
Sir.
It's
Good evening, folks. For the record, Larry Calley on behalf of the applicant, 479 Morris LLC. Mr. Chair, members, I think you have a pretty stacked evening. I know you're splitting the night judiciously among the applicants, so I'll be brief in my proffer. I'll let you folks know what it is that we're doing here, who you'll hear from tonight, and then we'll go from there with our first of 3 witnesses.
Thank you.
So the property, just for the record, is 477 to 479 Morris Avenue. It's block 507, lot 5. It's just under 10,000 square feet of land area. This at one point had been 2 lots. You can tell if you inspected the site or you've seen it on the plans that this had once been essentially divisible vacant lot bounded on the side yard by a structure pinched over in the corner of the lot on the other side. So we have a void on this property. It has since merged, probably by way of common ownership. The city records ultimately reflected it as a single lot. So the application before the board is to subdivide this back into a total of 2 lots, to fill that void where there was nothing there today with a 3-family structure, very similar to what you see along the corridor now and the streetscape now, very similar to what the applicant currently owns and operates on the property today. What brings us before the board here is there's D relief associated with that. We are not proposing to activate the first floor with a commercial use. The first floor is proposed to be residential use. The zone requires the first floor to be a commercial component of the use with the mixed-use residential above. We're proposing simply residential, which is what exists next door, exists several places along the corridor here on our side of the street and the other side. Nevertheless, it triggers D relief. There's also D relief technically for the expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use relative to the existing house. Now we're making that lot smaller, we're bisecting it. There's case law on that says that that's enhanced relief, you're intensifying the use. So that is technically the other aspect of the D relief. Very limited bulk relief. It essentially impacts only us between our 2 lots that we're proposing. It has to do with parking lot percentage of development and then a buffer between the property lines. I'll let our project engineer call those out shortly. Our project planner will justify them. And that brings us to our witness deck, Mr. Chairman and members. 3 experts. You're going to hear from our project engineer first, John Ferranti of E2PM. He's the scrivener of record of the site plans before the board. We'll walk you through the property, what's there today, the delta of what's changing and where relief is triggered. Time permitted, we're going to go to our project architect, Rob Forbes. We'll walk you through the elevation, the floor plans, as well as the enhancements we're going to propose and provide for the existing house that's there right now today. And then, again, time permitted, our project planner, Paul Rickey, will testify as to the variance proofs. We think it's a very appreciable and justifiable case. Nevertheless, we have to put in our case before the board supports, and we'll do that this evening if the clock is looking good for us, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions for the attorney? None? Go ahead and proceed to your first
Thank you,
witness.
sir. So I'll call John Ferranti, our project engineer, as our first witness.
John, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name for the record, spell your last name.
Yes, John Ferranti, F as in Frank, E-R-R-A-N-T-E.
And you're a licensed professional engineer?
Yes, I am.
And you've been practicing for a considerable length of time? All right. Tell us 3 boards you've appeared before recently.
Yeah, the most recent ones are Morristown, Morris Township, Chatham Borough, Chatham
Mr.
Township.
Chairman, do you accept his credentials?
I believe unless anyone has any problems, we do, and
Can you hear me?
The handheld does work if you could turn it on, just switch it on.
Thank you.
No problem.
And John, just to confirm, your license is still current and in good standing as of today, right?
Yes.
Very good. Accepted, Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Thank you. Okay, John, you heard my proffer to the board, and you know we're sort of up against the clock here. With the benefit of the board reports, a decent amount of time passed since we've been deemed complete in here. If you wouldn't mind, and I don't think we're gonna mark anything with this witness, Mr. Chairman, either.
Okay.
So everything you're gonna see tonight is already on file with the board. John, if you wouldn't mind walking the board through the existing conditions and then the proposed
Yes.
improvements?
Just for the record, the drawings that you have in front of you are revision D, dated March 7, 2024. I have the drawings here that I can put on the board. I have a colorized version. I'm not sure if the board has a colorized version.
Colorized version, we have to,
That would have to mark, yeah.
We have to mark.
That's new, John, yeah. So if you introduce it, we'll just call it out, John, and we'll mark it.
A1? All the drawings or the full set, just A1?
just submit the whole set to us as A1.
No. So the full set will be A1,
Thank you.
yes.
Colorized version, the colorized, you're gonna show us the colorized drawing, right?
Correct.
That'll be A2.
Very good. And if you give me bear with me for a second, I'll put the drawings up. Where would you like me to stand, on this side or?
Take the microphone with you.
I think you should.
No, I will.
I think you should stay where he is over
Okay.
there.
Yeah, that's why you take the microphone.
Okay, here.
Well,
I'll just provide a quick overview of the drawings that I've indicated. This is the title sheet, Figure 1, Revision D, which provides the tax map overlaying on the aerial and the zoning. We are in the B2 zone, and we're bordered with the R10 zone, the residential zone to the north. Just to orient the board, we're on Morris Avenue. We have a car dealership to our immediate west side. Our neighbor to the left, Lot 6, is a mixed-use residential. We are Lot 5 and 4. In fact, the tax map still shows the Lot 5 as 2 lots, but it is a single lot, noted as Lot, excuse me, Lot 5. To the east of us, we have 2 smaller lots, Lot 3 and 2, with residential uses, a 3-family use. Across the street, we have residential diagonally across. The lot sizes are pretty slightly larger than ours, but in essence, what I'm trying to demonstrate, and we have offices. So the commercial corridor has residential on both sides. So what we're proposing for you to hear tonight is that we're in keeping with the character. To the rear, we have the Oratory High School parking lot, but it is it's part of the R10. We're fortunate that as far as in the B2 zone, a lot of the typical bulk table, we meet all the requirements. In fact, lot area, lot width, minimum yard requirements in the frontage, maximum lot coverage, building coverage, and height. So with that, I'm going to turn to the existing condition drawing, which is Figure 2. And you can see the lot 5, which is the entire lot, which we will subdivide by creating 2 equal-sized lots. The existing residential, 3-story residential, 3-family is on the east side, and we're proposing minimal changes to the existing resident structure. We remove only 2 trees, and then as I'll show in my landscaping, we are providing a considerable amount of landscaping to shield the proposed use. Also very important, this lot has parking in the front yard, which we know that the Summit does not favor parking in the front yard, and we're going to correct that condition, as well as there is only 1 curb cut for the entire lot, and we're maintaining a single curb cut. With that, I'm going to turn to figure 3, which is the site plan as indicated. We are proposing the new structure, sort of equal in size and height, roughly in the same, just slightly smaller actually than the existing house. But in essence, we're proposing a single driveway. We're able to make the size of the driveway larger than a typical 12-foot, but it'll be a two-way traffic to the rear. We do meet the parking requirements, and we were able to place all the parking in the rear. Single curb cut. We're setting the existing structure back just slightly under the 10 feet from the right-of-way line, property line, and we're providing all the stormwater management. The board engineer did comment on the potential conflict with a car entering the site and a car exiting the site. We would require the parking, anyone leaving the parking lot to yield to the incoming traffic, so we don't create a problem with on Morris Avenue. Also, even though we have a parking lot to the rear, we are providing a 40-inch tall solid fence on both sides with a gate to get to the back, and a 6-foot board-on-board fence to the rear. And with that, I will present the next drawing, which is the grading plan. The site does slope to the rear, so we're capturing all the stormwater from the site, both the roof, the parking to the rear on 2 dry wells per lot, and 2 catch basins in the rear, and all that water will be brought back to the stormwater dry wells. Lighting, obviously, we went with the parking lot with low bollards, primarily to also shield the neighbors from any light encroachment. We do meet the lighting standards at the property line. So we went with the bollards, as you see there. We have the detail. And the rest of the fixtures, the type A fixtures are building mounted fixtures. All the fixtures we're proposing are tax-card compliant, and we're proposing the fixture to be 3,000 Kelvin, which is under the 3,500 Kelvin that the township requires. As far as landscaping, you see we're providing a considerable amount of trees in the front, 3 in the front for each lot, and 6 in the rear. We did receive comments from the city forester, and he provided good comments, and we would stipulate that we can meet and incorporate those comments as when we revise the drawing. But we are providing shrubbery as a buffer. And the other thing that I'll talk about the variances, but I think our attorney did cover some of them, but I will address them as well. We have to meet soil erosion sediment control. We are greater than the 5,000 square feet, and obviously, as far as going back to parking, we are required 6 spaces, and we're adding electric vehicle spaces in the parking lot, so that theoretically gives us a bonus of an additional space, so theoretically 7 spaces, but we do meet the required 6 spaces. But we are providing also the EV spaces. Regarding EV spaces, since this is a private lot, it will be controlled by the owner of the two buildings as far as assigning the electric vehicle. They're not electric vehicle public spaces for the public to come in and utilize those spaces. But so if the renters have electric vehicles, they'll be accommodated by that. If not, then those spaces could be used as parking spaces. As far as the variances, the one variance has to do with we are required to have 9 by 18 parking spaces, and to be able to, for us, what we did to maintain the buffer, we have a 5-foot buffer around the parking lot. We have slightly substandard spaces that we're requesting a variance. Instead of 9 feet, we have 8.5 feet. We were given a comment to utilize airpin striping in the lot, which we have provided and revised the drawing. The lot is relatively flat, so the amount of grading is very little. And the other variance is, as indicated, is the use variance due to the residential use on the first floor. And the third variance, lot 5 has an additional variance of expanding in a use that's not a non-compliant use. But in essence, going back to the figure 1, which is the title sheet, we, as I said, we meet the parking, we've taken care of the drainage, and we size the drainage much larger than it would have to be as far as what the city is required. The board engineer has commented it, and they've agreed with our sizing and calculation. So again, just to, as far as the variances, permitted use that we discussed, the 5-foot buffer between the parkings, we are required by the township ordinance to have a 5-foot buffer between the two lots, which having the common driveway, we cannot meet that, so we're asking for a variance. Obviously, the two lots, there'll be access agreements back and forth because they do share the lot. That's a quick overview, and I'll be sorry, Mr. Larry, I didn't give you a chance to ask me any questions, but I just wanted to give a quick overview, and I'll be glad to entertain questions.
That's fine, John. Mr. Chairman, any questions, the board members, your professional staff?
Professionals, you're up first.
Sure. You didn't mention anything about snow removal. Could you kind of go over that?
Sorry.
The snow removal on the back parking lot?
Right, that's, that was a good comment. You see, there's not a lot of room in the lot to stack snow removal. Obviously, we would think that the snow removal will try to bring all the snow to the rear. But we've thought about that, and I think we discussed it, that we would stipulate that the snow would have to be removed from the lot. And we just literally can't stack, otherwise we would lose parking space.
Right, right. Or kill the bushes that are on the side,
Kill
is
the
what I was
bushes.
worried.
No, we don't.
And could you talk about the bollards?
Yes.
Could you make sure that they're,
Right,
in a
we've,
spot that they're not gonna get hit?
correct. We've located the bollards in between the parking spaces, thinking that as the car pulls in, they will not hit the bollard. But I think, knowing the way let's say I drive, I would probably hit those. So what we'll do is recess them slightly away from the parking. There'll still be enough light, so we're not going to suffer by pulling them away from the space.
Okay. Will there be any parking assigned to the residents that are in there?
Yes.
And
That's
how will that be done?
Well,
And maybe you don't know that, maybe that's for the
Well,
owner?
the property owner would, but in essence, they would assign based on the cars, and as I indicated, EV, if someone has an electric vehicle, they'll be assigned electric vehicle space, and the other ones will be distributed amongst the owner, the renters of the two structures.
So since there's limited amount of parking on there, if nobody has an EV car, what will happen with that EV spot?
That
Is there any
space
way
will be
you can
used for
use that?
parking, so it's not restricted from being used.
Okay, so it's not, there's no enforcement of the EV
Correct.
spot, somebody can park there,
Correct.
okay. Is there anything else that can be done to help navigate cars in and out of that narrow, long driveway? Just because there's, I understand that the person coming out is supposed to yield to the person that's trying to get off of
Correct.
Morris Avenue. But in practicality, could you elaborate
Right,
on that maybe?
excuse me?
Just
Yes,
elaborate for
I
us.
thought someone asked a question. Yeah, we've thought of that, obviously, the signage from the parking, someone exiting, there'll be a yield sign to yield to incoming traffic, obviously, that's important. The other thing, the other concern we have is, obviously, cars pulling in at, sort of, we could limit the speed, that I think will be valuable to reduce the speed. We could have a 5 mile per hour sign. But in essence, though, the cars coming in from Morris, either a right-hand turn in or left-hand turn in, since the buildings are set back almost 10 feet, there'll be enough warning as far as if the car is trying to come out. Now, if a car is, let's say, has advanced deeper towards the driveway, they would literally have to back up to let the car in. But signage is important, so that we believe that the amount of traffic that created by 6 spaces should not cause that, because the cars coming into the rear are people that live there. So this space, we could limit visitors, for example, because that's, people start coming into the back, that could cause additional conflicts for that issue. So that could be limited as well. And we don't anticipate any deliveries coming to the back. In fact, one of the comment was a waste, how the waste, we do have spaces for the waste to be stored in the rear, and we do not anticipate the waste truck coming into the rear, so all the waste will be brought out to the street. As it currently, I believe, speaking with the owner, that's currently how it's done now.
Each individual renter brings out their garbage, or is it the
That
property
part,
management?
I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but I would see that, I'm not sure there would be a building manager for this small amount of units, but in essence, yes. Each renter would bring garbage out.
I think that's all the questions I had.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. With regard to the variances that you have identified, you identified 3 variances. I'm looking also at Krista's memo, and I don't remember where we landed on this issue. I know there's been revisions on this plan as a subsequent to certain comments. Krista's memo of April 8th, 2024, where she had identified a buffer requirement variance for the rear area adjacent to a single-family zone. Is that something that we're asking for in this application, or does the
Well,
applicant have a position?
Yes, you're correct. The way we've interpreted the ordinance is that as far as we are a residential use, so we are the more protected use, and the fact that we do have the high school parking lot to the rear, we believe that variance is not applicable because of that fact. At least our planner can get into more details on that. But
Okay.
when we initially looked at the application, we didn't think that was a variance because of, we are a residential use.
It's interesting because there's a nuance in the regulations that talks about when you're abutting a residential zone or to any non-resident, non-permitted use on a lot. I know that we're talking about a use at the lower level of the building, so it's something for us to discuss, but I just wanted to point it out for the board that there may be a variance, specifically for a proposed Lot 5. But yet, that's something that we can talk about as we get further down the road on this.
Thank you.
With regard to the site plan layout, I noticed that you have a garbage area to the back of the building that's on Lot 5. Will there also be a corresponding garbage area or collection area for the existing building on Lot 4?
Yes, and I think we show it on the drawing. Flipping back to our figure 4, it's located here, pretty sure.
Yeah, it's under the
In the
wooden
back here is similar to the storage area
Okay.
on Lot 4.
And are those areas large enough? You have 3 units in each building.
We-
Thinking about the number of cans, things of that
Right,
nature.
we believe that it's wide enough in length to be able to have a typical waste bin plus recycle bins. I think the residences will probably try to share the recycling bins and try to limit the amount of bins that will be there. It will be unsightly if everyone has two bins with the recycle bin, the waste bin, times 3, 6, and 6, 12.
It just seems like, how many bins can you have within that area? And I'm
Yeah,
trying not to get
we're showing just, as far as size, a typical bin is 30 inches in width. You can have easily, before you get to the entrance, 6 bins there.
Okay, thank you. Is there a sidewalk along the driveway that goes?
Yes,
front
well,
of the property?
unfortunately, I think some of the comments that we had received, initially, we had made this smaller, a 12-foot lane. We were, one of the comments that in getting to a revision D was to make that wider. But we do have on Lot 5 side, a 2.5 feet, and on Lot 4, a 2-foot, but which is, obviously, it's narrow, we recognize that, but we did try to provide at least an ability for people to walk. But I think we favored, and we agree with the comments that try to increase the size of the lane. A 12-foot lane would work for this type of use, but, so we've increased it because of comments we had received, so which makes that sidewalk a little substandard. Just have 2.5 feet and 2 feet. Normally, you would want 3 feet.
So you would have probably a 2.5-foot wide sidewalk on the Lot 4
5.
side?
Lot 5 side.
Is
2
Lot
feet.
4 to the left?
Lot 5 is to the left.
Oh, okay,
Lot 4 is to the right.
okay. So it would be on Lot 5. Thank you. Regarding the landscape plan, I know the town, the city forester had commented on the landscape design.
Yes, we would, as I stipulated, we would be glad to work with him to make the revisions that he requested.
Adjusting species of trees, things of that
Correct.
nature. One of the things I would offer for consideration is you do propose 2 shade trees very close to that driveway exit. Realizing there's going to be a lot of visual cueing that's going to be necessary there, maybe those 2 trees should not be at that location from a site plan standpoint.
It's a good comment. What we can do in the next revision, show these side triangles to make sure that we don't, those trees do not block. If they do, we'll relocate them.
I'm just trying to make it apparent that someone's coming out or someone's going in at that location.
So what, are we putting a condition in that that you'll submit a final landscaping plan to Mr. Linson? Is that acceptable?
Is that acceptable?
We can agree to that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
I have a question. 2, actually. One is, in the very front of the property, I look at the picture of the sidewalk in front of the building. Is that going to be repaired or replaced?
Yeah, good question. I think we had noted that we are redoing the entrance, drive.
It's a sidewalk that you'd walk in front of the building, you know, just along Morris
We
Avenue.
have not indicated that the sidewalk be refurbished, but we'd be glad to look at it in greater detail, and if it needs to, we we can agree to
Yeah,
that.
I can tell from the Google map, just looking down, that there's a spot there, there's pavement and concrete, so it doesn't look right.
Yes.
The other thing is, I heard you say 2.5 foot wide sidewalk on one side of the driveway and then 2 feet on the other side?
Correct.
Wouldn't it make more sense to make a 3 foot or 4 foot sidewalk on just one side?
Yes, we could do
Well,
that. No, it's a,
I'm just a lawyer, I don't know what other
No.
people think.
we take all comments.
I mean, I know we're trying to make it fit, but why not have something
Now,
that works?
obviously,
All right.
we would have to respect, we don't want that not to have a curb to protect the.
Well, I
the
didn't say you
building
shouldn't have a
itself.
curb, I'm just saying, if there's a way to just move a little concrete to one side so that you have a legitimate,
You also
Width.
don't want
Yeah,
people
we
hitting
can,
the
we
house
can
in
look
the
at
car.
that,
I've had
next-
girls.
good driver, terrible parker.
Yes.
Well, would you consider reducing the width of that building to make an actual sidewalk? I mean, a 2-foot sidewalk with a car coming, it's really not, it's not practical, right? And if someone has mobility issues or mobility challenges, that 2 feet is going to be right up against a house.
We understand.
There's no
and
buffer, so would you consider reducing the width of the building?
I would defer that to our architect.
Okay, he's
But
coming.
we as civil engineers would not object.
Simple question. What is the minimum width that drive aisle needs to be for 2 cars to pass by each other?
12 feet, as I said.
To get 2 cars passing
No,
by
No,
each
they
two
other?
cars,
can't pass.
2 cars would need at least 16 to 18 feet, which is tight. A normal lane, street lane is 12 feet, which
Right.
is more than adequate. If you note, a parking space is 9 feet wide, but the cars are slightly narrower than that. So let's just say we use an average car, 7.5 feet, 15, 16 feet, but that would be tight.
So
Two-
adequate would
two-way
be
would
roughly
not-
18,
We don't have enough.
and you're
room.
proposing roughly 15 right now?
13.75.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So the way the buildings are designed, first of all, it's multifamily. These are rentals or are these
Rentals.
condos? They're rentals, right?
I believe it's rental, but,
Yes.
Okay. And,
Yeah, there's always this sensitivity about asking the question of whether they're rentals or not. There's case law that says we're not allowed to
Oh, okay.
get too far deep into that.
okay.
I
Um,
understand why you're asking.
So the entrance to the units, are they in the back? Or it looks like the back, that's where the staircase is. So everyone's going to be entering through the back. Is there any entrance to the buildings from the front?
yes. You'll see that from the architect's presentation, the existing, there's an entrance in the front, and there'll be an entrance in the front for the new residential, as well as there'll be access to the rear as
So
well.
access to all 3 units from both the front and the back? Or was it just the
To the
ground?
building.
To the building, so you can get, if you're on the 3rd floor, you can go in from the front
Yeah.
and from the back. So so if you park in the back, technically you can go to your
That
unit
part-
and leave through the front if you're going to
I
walk
don't
out.
think Mr. Ferranti knows,
Yeah,
you know,
I
what,
have.
he didn't design the building,
Right.
our architect will
Okay.
testify that shortly, and he'll be up next. And he heard the questions, I hear him answering kind of back there.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll get to that,
Okay,
we promise.
and, okay, and then I have a question about the garbage, but. is
Yeah,
there-
the city does allow a single-family house to have 4 cans a week. So I don't know what the apartment limit is.
But the city doesn't allow you to bring this garbage out to the street, right?
No,
So they have to
it's
stay
in the back. I know what I'm saying is if they have 4 cans each apartment, because it's a once-a-week pickup, it's not a twice-a-week pickup. So they're 2 cans twice a week, and it's 4 cans. It's a lot of cans,
But
and they're not gonna fit there. We know that.
my comment about the entrance has to do with the sidewalk. So if it is if the entrance is, if anybody leaving the unit has to go through the driveway / walkway, that's why I'm concerned about how you enter and exit through the
Okay.
buildings.
Right.
Well, we'll-
Each building has its own entrance from the front.
We'll hear that from the architect. This end? Questions?
Yes, excuse me, I have one,
Don?
or a couple if I can get it out. Is there enough, obviously, what happens with the excess water that comes out of these drainage tanks? You say it's gonna drain to the sewer system in the street. There's enough pitch, all that kind of fed by gravity, no pumps, anything like that?
Correct.
Okay. And then, if I'm looking at the plan right, the building is 3.25 feet from the property line? Is that correct? For the side yard on the, which would be the right-hand side or the east side of the building?
The new building is 3.25 on lot 4 to the east. The existing building is 5 feet to the, yes, to the side yard.
And by any chance, do you know how far the other building to the right of the proposed building is from the property line?
Yeah,
Is it here?
we don't have a dimension to the building to the east, but just comparing, looking at the scale, it's comparable.
So they're about that far away from each other? Because I'm 6 foot tall.
Well, if you aggregate the, let's say, 3.5, 3.25 on our lot 4, and to the neighbor, you'll have about 7
6
feet between the buildings.
Well, 3.25 and 3.25 is 6.5, almost 7. If you're paying me, I'll take the 7. If I'm paying myself, I'll take the 6.5.
We can add those dimensions, so we're not guessing.
And then, just pulling in and
Yeah,
out of the
I
driveway.
apologize. The survey shows that it's 3.88
Okay?
to
So
this
you're right.
point, and 3.95 to the back,
For the new building?
for our neighbor.
Okay, so it is around 7 feet. So it's a foot longer than that.
My hands are short.
So, cars coming out of the driveway onto Morris. You visited the site, I would assume, correct? During the day, the car dealership, real estate office, lawyer's office, they all park on Morris Avenue. So we talked about, you mentioned maybe limiting visitors, maybe. Where do you propose they park? So is the city or the county now providing parking spaces for an individual who's building
Right.
a building?
As I indicated, I'm now referring to figure 2. There's an existing single curb cut for the parking lot on lot, let's call it lot 4. It's really all lot 1, but it's on the east side of the existing building. So that's really not changing. So if you compare figure 2 to figure 3, we've located the driveways are in the
I'm
same.
not talking about the driveway, I'm talking about where people are gonna park. If you're putting 3 units in one and you already have 3 in the other. Right now, it's a whole parking lot, so the unit has 3 units in it currently, plenty of parking. So you're actually reducing parking for the occupants, because now the visitors, if the parking lot's full, they're gonna have to find someplace else to park, which then puts a burden on the neighborhood.
John, maybe go back to your testimony that the parking that's proposed is conforming to the code standards.
Correct,
And within
yes.
the code standards, whether it's a portion of RSI is adopted, or just the city code,
Correct.
that factors in not just the tenancy, but it factors in visitors as well. Maybe that will help.
Right,
answer
and I was
Dustin's question.
mentioning that. We do note, as it also indicated, that parking is allowed on the street, but as far as this application, we do meet the parking requirement.
Correct, for the occupancies.
Correct.
Well, for
Residents.
the code factors in the totality of what it anticipates for that unit. That's baked into RSIs, that's baked into every local code, and Mr. Snikes can explain that further on behalf of the
Okay.
board. Our planner will as well, but
Good.
there is no secondary overlay for where the visitors park. That's part of the metric that's already in the code that this application meets.
Correct.
Okay. And then, in your professional opinion, do you feel that 10 feet is adequate space for someone coming out of this driveway to react to traffic on Morris Avenue with vehicles parked in that area?
Yeah, if we limit the speed, I'm referring back to figure 3. A car exiting here, as far as, if I superimpose a typical site triangle, its view onto Morris Avenue is quite broad, obviously. We will add, I think the board engineer correctly said, what other measures can we do? There'll be a stop sign, obviously. We're proposing a stop sign, a stop bar. So we want exiting traffic to, to be careful and be able to see the traffic on Morris Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the
I
board?
just have one. I just want to
Please.
confirm that there is no plan to have a fence that, your point about the property being the building actually being 7 feet from the neighboring building in the neighbor's property. There's no plan to have a fence there in between those, right?
We are, is again referring to figure 3, we have the fence starting at the end of the building, which is also past the end of our neighbors' buildings, and we have a gate to limit access to the rear. But there'll be no fencing we're proposing along the building envelope, if you will, both along the residence to the east and to the residence to the west.
I think, I mean, I don't know if there has to be a stipulation that there isn't, but I'm just thinking about fire access. If there is a fire in either one of those buildings, and anybody decides that they're gonna put a fence up in between those buildings, I don't know how putting up a 4-foot fence is allowed in Summit without like much permit issue. If anybody puts a fence up there, then I don't know how the fire department would access either building on that side if there was an issue. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be
I
stipulated.
wrote it down, we can include it, that's not, they're not proposing fencing, they're not gonna care if we impose a condition that says no fencing along the building or in the front yard.
That's fine.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is your purview or not, or the architect's. Any consideration for fire protection inside the building, such as a sprinkler system?
Well,
I'll defer to-
That may be the engineer, I mean
yes,
architect.
that would be,
Okay.
under the International Building Code, whether it's required or not.
I know it's, whether it's required, the question is, has there ever been any consideration to maybe do that?
That's a fair
Since
question.
they're so close to each
Well, we
other,
should- well, we should wait
limited
for-
access?
We should wait for the architect.
Okay,
though.
very good.
Good question.
Any other questions from the board?
I have one other question. If all the parking spots are taken up, including the 2 UV spaces, and say a car came in to go look for parking, and they didn't realize that, whatever, somebody parked, somebody's visitor parked in the spot, is there enough room for them to turn around? Like, because basically you can't, all those parking spots are full, besides without backing out that driveway?
Yeah, it's a great question. Assuming that all the spaces are occupied and someone enters the property, we have a normal space between 90-degree parking would be 24. We're fortunate, we have 29, but that 29 feet, it would be difficult for a car to try to make a turn, and turn around and exit the site. So, again, that's probably, what we can do to alleviate that concern. We could put not only signage, but a lighted indicating that the parking lot is full, so some kind of electronic signage to say that the lots are full.
I think you should think about, you're gonna come back anyway, guys, give that some
Yes,
thought.
it's a
and
good
let us
comment,
know
it's a great comment. Thank you.
at the,
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
questions from, yes, sir.
just one last question. It sort of reminded me as the board was asking questions. It may seem obvious, but are you consenting to cross-access agreements, things of that
I wrote
nature?
that down already.
Yes.
Okay, figured you
Cross-access
did.
easement to be reviewed and approved by the board attorney
Gotcha.
and must be recorded prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you're right, you can't let that escape.
And one more from you.
Yes, well, can I have 2?
You can have to.
I have 2 follow-up. Could you just go back to talking about the overflow from the dry wells? I just wanted to make sure that that was adequately represented.
Yeah, well,
Those 2 overflows in the back, where do they drain to?
well, currently going back to figure 2, which is the existing grade, as you can see, the site currently slopes, everything all the rain that falls to the site goes towards the back to the north. What we've done to alleviate that is that I'm turning now to our detail of the design of the dry wells. As you can see, as far as what's required for as far as the amount of rain that's falling on the site for us to handle, it would be 400 cubic feet of the dry well volume that it's required. We over-designed it by a factor of 2 to 912. So our idea was to oversize the dry wells so that the amount of water that would have to overflow from the dry wells to the neighbor would be limited to, where obviously a rainstorm that's not an average rainstorm. Further, what we will do, we will infiltrate. So we're not counting on the amount of water that will infiltrate. That adds additional capacity to the dry wells. And in New Jersey, as we all know, dry wells require soil testing. You have to confirm that the groundwater table is 2 feet lower than the dry well. So we have to do all that testing, and we will do that and provide all that information to you.
Okay. And then one other thing is I was looking, and I'm gonna have to figure out which plan it was on. Hold on one second. I was looking at the yield sign, and it seemed to be contradictory to what you had talked about. Let me see, it's on figure 3.
Okay?
Figure 3. It looks like there's a yield sign that's facing the cars that are entering the lot. Isn't it something that we're saying that people that are exiting the lot are supposed to yield to somebody coming in?
Correct.
So I think that sign might be facing
Needs
the
to be
wrong
reversed.
direction. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, questions from the public for this witness? I don't see any. So do you want to move on?
Well, you're
We're getting close to being out of time.
How much do we have left? I don't want to.
At 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes.
I put 45 minutes into a thing on my watch, and it's at 40 seconds. And if we had to get some questions, I think we could do it, but I don't think you can start another
You
witness.
just
No,
did.
I don't like the continuity of a few minutes of the architect. He's gonna come back anyway, our architect. So at this
Right.
point, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time tonight. We'll be looking for the next day. Did I hear 12/9?
12/9. 12/9 or March, what was it? It's a date in March. It's not the December 9th, it's the,
We can make December 9th work. The balance of our
Okay.
witnesses are available, Mr.
And
Chairman.
you waive the time which the board has to act?
We do.
all of that wonderful good
So
things.
we need a motion?
We need a motion from a board member to carry this to December 9th.
Without notice, correct?
Yes, without notice and all these other wonderful good things.
And a second?
Second.
Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Loikett?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Ms. Chifo?
Yes.
The
Thank you.
motion carries.
Thank you.
7:30, right? On the night? 7:30?
7:30.
Yeah. Thank you, folks. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody. See you in a few weeks.
Yep. We move on to Beacon Hill Club. And we do have a few people who are leaving us. I'm sorry?
Goodbye again.
Oh. Welcome. And are you leaving us again? He just got here and now he's leaving. We have a number of people who are
He didn't want to
recusing
share
themselves.
microphones, so, you know. He didn't like the spot.
We're back to Zambonis, okay.
Yep, hopefully we'll get to it.
We'll get there.
All right.
You wanted to give us a quick update of where we are and what we need to accomplish tonight?
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna give a little bit of a recap, just because there's been some time in between the first hearing. Hillary Alls from Dempsey, and Sheehan, representing the applicant, Beacon Hill Club, 250 Hobart Avenue, Block 2203, Lot 1, in the R43 zone. Beacon Hill Club is a permitted conditional use that has been located at the site since 1955. The applicant proposes to construct additions to the existing carriage house to provide easier accessibility to areas of the club that are currently difficult to navigate to and around due to the topography of the lower campus, provide for indoor storage of existing outdoor equipment, as well as dedicated maintenance area and garage, and upgraded and modernized space for existing members and employees. Minor expansion of Pat's house, which is an existing non-conforming accessory structure, and reconfiguration of the upper and lower parking areas, which will add off-street parking and improve traffic circulation. The variances requested are for lot coverage of 0.65%, disturbance of steep slopes of 2.12%, and height of an additional 8.5 feet, an expanded second story, and 55 square feet of additional space for Pat's house, and 9 off-street parking spaces where 18 are required. So at the first hearing, the applicant testified, as stated above, that Beacon Hill Club is a permitted and approved conditional use and has been a part of the neighborhood and Summit since 1955. The applicant confirmed the outdated and deteriorating condition of the existing carriage house and Pat's house, and the critical need for significant repair and modernization in the many areas where improved functionality are necessary. The lack of accessibility for those with mobility issues and young children, as well as the need for storage, maintenance, and employee space. The applicant offered conditions of approval that were the result of ongoing neighborhood meetings and discussions designed to address and mitigate any areas of concern. The civil engineer testified with regard to the unique characteristics of the site, including the topography and existing structures. Mr. Scott detailed the areas that contribute to the additional 0.65% of lot coverage proposed and described the stormwater management that is designed to sufficiently capture runoff related to the increased coverage. Mr. Scott stated that 2.12% of regulated steep slopes will be disturbed, and explained the disturbance was designed to meet the purposes of the ordinance and not cause erosion or other unstable condition. Protective measures will be in place, that there will be no negative impact or effect on community health, safety, or welfare as a result. Erosion, siltation, and runoff will be contained, and stormwater management is proposed as previously described. Mr. Scott also confirmed that the existing non-conforming lighting will be replaced with compliant site lighting that will not have any off-site spillage and be regulated by automatic timers, and that the new mechanical equipment proposed will be quieter, more energy efficient, and environmentally friendly. The traffic engineering expert described the on-site circulation and off-street parking, concluding that a variance for 9 off-street parking spaces was required under the ordinance. Mr. Paragoy went on to state that the new spaces proposed as a result of this application, went on to state that the new spaces proposed as a result of this application would not generate additional demand or trip generation due to the nature of the proposed use, and that the improvements are for existing membership and employees' storage and access. His conclusion was that the proposal will improve every single condition relating to off-street parking, site circulation, and accessibility without question under all applicable standards. The architect took the board through the floor plans and new elevations for both the carriage house and Pat's house, went into greater detail of the compliant building lighting, described the ADA accessible improvements, and confirmed the representations by the applicant as to the outdated, unsafe, and deteriorating nature of the buildings. Mr. Cooney called out the minor variances for Pat's house, including the expansion to the second story, the additional height of 8.5 feet, and the additional 55 square feet to be added in between the window bump outs to allow for better viewing experience. Mr. Cooney's expert opinion with regard to both areas of improvement was that they would result in an aesthetic improvement over existing conditions, and that the additional height, stories, and area for Pat's house will not be easily perceived due to its location, topography, and proposed screening. Mr. Cooney is here again tonight to testify with regard to the fire chief's administrative review and subsequent determination that was filed with the board that a sprinkler system for Pat's house is not required, and that out of an abundance of caution, a second egress door is being added to the second floor of Pat's house, which will be described in more detail by Mr. Cooney. The acoustical engineering report will be introduced into the record, which confirms that the sound levels and that those levels as measured at the property are currently in compliance with the state and local noise ordinance regulations for the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., with the club's commitment to continued compliance. The landscape architect will testify with regard to the landscape plan, which includes approximately 120 new trees and shrubs, resulting in significant screening and shielding, and overall beautification of the lower campus and Brantwood Drive streetscape. And finally, if we get to it, we will conclude with the planner, Paul Phillips, who will discuss the justifications for the relief requested as required by the municipal land use law.
Questions for the attorney? Proceed with your first witness.
Okay, Brian Cooney.
You're still
You
under
have
oath?
to, I'm sorry, you just have to switch it on.
You gotta switch it on, okay.
No, it's, I believe it's on the
base?
microphone.
Oh, it's on the
Yeah,
microphone.
yes.
No,
Gotcha.
that-
Can you hear me now?
It's on.
There we go, much better, all right.
You're still under oath, I suppose, right?
Yes, he was sworn in.
Yes,
Fire away,
I was sworn in
let's
last time, yes.
Okay.
All right. At the last hearing, there
Tip
was
top.
discussion regarding items in the fire chief's administrative review. Since that hearing, have you had the opportunity to speak with the fire department and clarify what is requested or required?
Yes, I spoke with the Summit Fire Department. It was Lieutenant Lemons who was reviewing the Pat's House application, and we discussed their technical letter and that we were going to comply with numbers 1 through 3 of their technical letter. But fire suppression of Pat's House was under question last time. And per my last testimony, within the IBC, we don't meet any of the thresholds to have a sprinkler system. We're exempt with our use. But we want to discuss with the fire department based on the board's recommendation. They agreed with us that if we followed the code, that it was not required, and in their opinion, it was a request on their part just to make the building a safer structure. And upon further review and speaking with him, we came to the conclusion that a second means of egress to the new second floor would create a safer building. So we've created a new plan, which is on the screen now.
So those will be marked A4 and A5.
And in this plan, you can see, just recapping the plan from my first testimony, that currently we have a one-story structure, so this is on the rink level, and we are straightening out the facade. The new addition above to add square foot to the second floor would be an entrance to this roof deck, an entrance here, and the viewing space. And our second means of egress, we are proposing putting it on the backside. And there's actually a path along the backside of the building here that you can egress out of, and it's about 8 steps down to grade. And the stair we'd propose would be a metal access stair, so it'd be open grate. So it'd be essentially transparent to precipitation. It wouldn't add to the impervious coverage of the building. We also looked up other variances that it could potentially impact, such as the building dimension and coverage, but per the zoning ordinance definitions, we don't actually impact those variances we're seeking as well. So the back stair really is just a safety bonus to the building, and we feel that it would greatly increase the life safety, and that's about it for my testimony.
That's all I've got.
Anything from our professionals on this?
No, I have nothing.
Board members?
I have a couple. Is the second floor of Pat's house ADA accessible?
It's not, but there's an equal viewing opportunity on the first floor, which is ADA accessible and has
So then if there's an equal opportunity on the first floor, why build a second floor?
So, well, the idea is that more people can view from the building.
Okay. But not if you're ADA handicapped.
Well, there's an ADA accessible viewing platform from the first floor
Okay.
that you can get to through a ramp on the sides.
Gotcha. So just off the top of my head, how much are you guys investing in Pat's house?
I'm not sure
I-
of that answer.
That's not.
I'm just trying to, I know, I'm
I
a
know
big.
what you're thinking, but we generally shouldn't ask that.
Okay,
kind of
I'm sorry, I apologize for asking that
No, you
question.
didn't do- you're
Let me
not wrong.
rephrase it. You're making a pretty big investment in this property, and I'm a big proponent of sprinklers. You have a fireplace. I know it's not required by building code, and I'm not questioning the fire department's expertise at all. I want to make that very clear. But you are making a significant investment in the property overall. One sprinkler head each floor, boom, done. Somebody forgets to put the fireplace out, or an amber sits there, building burns down, middle of the night. Is there an alarm system going to be in the building?
Yes.
Okay, so you have some forewarning for that?
No, smoke
But you have an
detectors, fire
on-duty,
alarm.
but you have an on-duty fireman 24 hours a day. I know it's an investment in capital to do that, I get it, but it reduces your insurance rates, I'm sure, helps you out, makes confidence, peace of mind, you don't have to worry about it. Just my 2 cents, but it's definitely your decision.
I have a question about, what is the max occupancy of Pat's house?
The max occupancy. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I believe it is, I think it's 15 square foot per person. I would have to get back to you on that.
Any other questions?
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question. And if we've covered this, I apologize, but the architecturally, why did you go with a roof the way it's designed versus potentially seeking relief for a lower pitch roof to get away from the 8-foot height?
The peak
The
of the roof?
peak here is triggering the 8-foot variance compliance?
We felt that this was the best look for the house itself. And I remember from my last testimony, there was some discrepancies on the height. It was 8 foot, you're right, but our feeling that if we went with a lower pitch, that it aesthetically wouldn't look right for Pat's house.
If you were to remove the roof and do a flat roof, what would the variance be required?
Let's see. Possibly none, probably no variance. But
But
I-
do you see a benefit in having a roof like this because it matches the other architecture on site?
Correct, so it would, yes, it would, and there is also a benefit with rain and snow removal with this kind of roof as well.
So there's an aesthetic benefit, and again, it's consistency with
Yeah,
the architecture
correct.
throughout the site.
And what is the square footage for the second floor? We've talked about 55 square feet addition, but what's on the second floor versus the bump outs on the first floor?
So the second floor is, I don't have the number in front of me, but it is, the building is, right now, it's 30 feet deep by about 50 feet, I believe. I'd have to get the exact numbers back to you.
Well, perhaps while we're talking to other witnesses, we
Yeah,
can look them
I
up.
can refer to my notes,
Um,
and I can
Okay.
get you the exact numbers.
Any other questions for this witness?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The extra staircase that you just put in, the second floor, like the extra exit,
Hmm?
that, what was there, so basically, that was the building ended there?
Yeah, I can bring up our previous plan. So previously, we had a rear structure for our air conditioning, which we actually don't need anymore because we changed our system type. It's gonna be a on-wall unit. Because we don't need that, we can put the stair there, and it was just a blank wall. I can show you the elevation. It was, jumped. Here. This is that same elevation without the stairs. And back behind you, it's just a wooded hill that you'd be seeing.
So it's just gonna be
It's a
concrete,
flattened
like-
will and then a wooden hill behind you.
So the staircase will
Yeah.
have, like, the supports will be in.
So can you go to the elevation of the stairs?
Correct, yeah. Right here.
So it provides an additional means of egress?
Yes.
And you think it adds to the
Safety.
look of the building?
The roof added, that's what he was asking about.
No, I was asking
Oh,
about
the
the
stairs.
stairs.
Well, that's the life safety factor of the building. for
That's the
sure.
reason, life
Yes,
safety.
yes.
So at the base of the stairs, when you get to the bottom of the stairs, is that a new walkway, or that was an existing, I mean, how are you getting?
You can walk, go back to the plan. We would have, a walkway to the plans now, there we go. There'd be a walkway that would essentially go along the backside here.
So that's being added, the walkway.
It's currently dirt, but we would add
Okay.
probably impervious pavers back there that would lead you to the side.
Any other questions?
I have one more, that, when we talked about the roof, is that, what type of material is the roof made out of? Is it
The
asphalt?
roof, currently it's being shown as a metal type roof,
Mhm.
but we're gonna have a matching shingle roof that will match
Okay.
the main
That's-
building.
Yeah, because I was worried about this, if it was a metal roof, where would the snow fall?
Right,
onto
exactly,
what?
that was
Yeah,
the issue,
okay.
that's why we moved to shingle roof. And I actually got the square footage of the second floor. Second floor is 885 square feet addition. Thank you. Yep.
But that doesn't include the roof.
No,
viewing area.
that's
That's
built,
another-
square footage, the roof deck is about 360.
Okay, questions from the public? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to ask a question of this witness on any of his testimony, both the last time or this time? I don't think you were subject to questioning the last time.
No, he was.
Well, let's finish the public first.
No
Then we'll
one's
come back
raising
to the
their
board
hand, so-
members. Nobody?
Nope, seeing no
Okay,
one.
please. Did you say you had another, who
No,
had another
no,
question?
I was just, I was interested in the occupancy, but if it's 15 square feet per person, then it's about 150 people, counting the roof. Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right, yeah. I'd have to go through the exact numbers, but it sounds about right.
Okay, anything else for this witness? Okay, then
Okay, next witness is Bill Scott.
Do you need anything?
Has Bill testified already tonight? Previously, or needs to be sworn?
Previously in the hearings,
Yes.
yes.
All right, Mr.
Okay.
Scott, you're all good to go.
So, Mr. Scott, you've been previously qualified by this board in connection with this application as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Yes, that's right.
And were you present at the last hearing during the board discussions regarding the Zamboni sound levels?
Yes.
And based on your participation at that hearing, as a civil engineer, what steps did you take to follow up with regard to an evaluation of compliance with state and local noise regulations as they relate to the Zamboni use of the subject property?
Well, following the last meeting, we had discussions with the Beacon Hill Club, and it was decided that they would retain a acoustical engineering expert to do some studies at the site. There were concerns brought up by the neighbors in the Brantwood area, so we wanted to ascertain some sound levels at that point. Sound levels were studied at the site for the Zamboni, the diesel-powered Zamboni, and sound levels were measured off-site at the Menon Arena on an electric Zamboni.
And did those measurements form the basis of a report that was prepared, dated November 15th by Benjamin Mueller of Ostergaard Acoustical Associates?
Yes, they did.
And that report was filed with the board?
Yes.
And have you reviewed that report and the applicable state and local noise regulations and conferred with the acoustical engineering consultant?
I have, yes.
And so based on your understanding of the noise regulations and your review of the report, dated November 15th, 2024, can it be said the Zamboni used by Beacon Hill Club complies with daytime 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. sound levels of 65 dBA? And that if an electric Zamboni were to be used for operation during nighttime hours, which is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., that the electric Zamboni would comply with the sound level of 50 dBA as required by the regulations?
Yes, those were the conclusions of the report.
And can you go through the conclusions?
Sure. So essentially, there's two different sound levels, one for daytime, one for nighttime. Daytime is considered 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and that restriction is 65 dBA. Nighttime, which is considered 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., has a lower threshold of 50 dBA. The report shows that the existing diesel Zamboni, as measured by Ostergaard, complies with the daytime limits. It's my understanding that the club intends to purchase a electric Zamboni. And again, the electric Zamboni was measured for comparison purposes at the Men in Sports Arena. And the report shows that the electric Zamboni sound levels would comply with the nighttime threshold for sound levels at the site.
Okay, and the state has established the limits of 65 dBA during the daytime hours and 50 dBA during the nighttime hours, specifically to assure that sound emanating from a source does not disrupt surrounding neighbors. Based on your review of the report, can you comment on that?
Well, again, the report clearly shows that the daytime level, the expected sound from the diesel Zamboni is lower than the daytime threshold, and the expected sound levels from the electric Zamboni is lower than the threshold of the nighttime, the lower restriction for nighttime.
Perfect, I don't have any other questions.
Questions?
I have two. No. I have two. One of them might sound really silly. The Zamboni, there's the sound of the diesel engine, but then also isn't there the beeping noises when the Zamboni's going like in reverse? I mean,
Well,
that's all measured?
What was studied was the travel of the Zamboni from the storage shed to the rink with the engine at maximum RPM. I'm not aware if they did a backup or beeping, so that's what was studied.
So the Zamboni does not have a backup beeper?
So it doesn't beep
No, it
at
does
all?
not, no.
Okay. And so if you're gonna purchase an electric Zamboni for nighttime, because it's quieter, what is the disadvantage, and why not use that? I mean, obviously you have one already, but is there any reason why you wouldn't use that during the day also?
So if you want, the applicant can answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
I have a.
He can answer the question. Go ahead, come on back up. You've been sworn before, so go right ahead.
Pascal Lalonde, Lalonde. We've done extensive due diligence on comparing a diesel-powered machine, gas-powered, versus an electric Zamboni. We spoke with the manufacturer, Zamboni, and they discouraged us from using an electric Zamboni as the only Zamboni, and currently we only have capacity for one. In the projected plan, there's space and storage, as Ms. Ulls mentioned, to have a second Zamboni, and that's why we want to purchase an electric one. The limits are due to just the constraints on a battery-powered machine in foul weather. Battery life, temperature sensitivity, it wouldn't be able to operate below a certain temperature threshold. They're designed to be indoor machines, and we're an outdoor facility.
So they'd be used, together, obviously, and then to
Okay.
reduce the,
But I have a crazy question.
Sure.
That shouldn't surprise anybody.
Yeah, it does.
So, we're arguing over the 10 o'clock hard cut. How late at night is the hockey rink gonna go, even if you're using the electric Zamboni?
So we had submitted proposed conditions of approval at the beginning of this, which outlines all of the
Just
times.
tell me.
So I believe the cutoff is 11 PM.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
Just for clarity, because that was going to be my question, the use of an electric Zamboni is not to waive what you've already proposed, correct? You're staying with that cutoff?
We're staying with the 11, yes. It would not extend it.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Right. There's a whole 2 sheets of agreed-to conditions,
That is correct.
and that's in there
Yes.
for those that may not have seen it before. It includes equipment storage, the emergency gate, and a number of things.
Correct.
Okay, other questions from the board? Professionals? Okay. Questions from the public for this witness? I see none.
All right, then we would like to call the landscape architect, Benjamin Heller.
Is this your last witness?
No.
We have a planner after this.
Yes.
Okay, you got 20 minutes.
Okay, we could probably go through landscaping.
She's got a little more than that based on where we are.
I'm helping you.
No, relax. I want to get them done.
Okay.
I don't want to have too much holdover and be done at 2:30.
So he has not yet testified,
All right,
so,
we'll get right to it.
sure. I'll do it.
Kindly raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Provide us your name, full name, last name, spell your last name.
Benjamin Heller, Heller.
And you have appeared before boards recently. Provide
Yes.
us with 3 boards that you have seen.
Washington Township, Tenafly, New Jersey, Franklin
Thank you.
Township, and I was here in February.
All right, do we accept this credential?
Yes, we did.
Excellent.
Fire away.
And this is new?
Yes,
I'll
And then-
explain that
So
in a
this
second.
is,
this is going to be a,
A6.
okay, thank you.
okay, can you explain the steps that you've taken to prepare yourself to give expert testimony in this matter?
Certainly, I have taken multiple site visits to the site, most recently this past weekend, reviewed the application, reviewed the land use ordinance and site plan conditions, etc., prepared the plans that are before you today, as well as the revised plan that's before you, reviewed the administrative reviews, and obviously reviewed any applicable ordinances.
Perfect, and you said you prepared plans in connection with this application?
I did, yes, indeed. The plan that's before you today is the landscape plan that was revision date 9/4. We have revised plants that were 14 Norway spruces, and we've substituted them for 30 green giants, which I will point out to you in a moment.
Perfect. Can you describe the revised landscaping plan dated 9/4/24, which is marked as a 6 for the board and the members of the interested public?
Absolutely. I'm gonna. Good? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you
Yes.
could.
All right, good. I'm gonna walk over there. All right. So, before you today, you have the landscape plan. I have at the top of the screen, Brantwood, the existing structure as well as the proposed additions, and Pat House is right here as I'm pointing to it. This landscape plan is designed to have 3 levels of screening from Brantwood. I will explain those screenings, but in addition to that, we have plenty of plants throughout. The first level of screening, as I mentioned prior, was the 30 green giants, which I'm pointing to right here. Originally, we had 14 Norway spruces. We now have 30 green giants that have been planted. They were planted about a month and a half ago. In addition to that, we have an additional 31 green giants that continue to line Brantwood on the interior of what is an existing just about 3-foot wall, masonry wall that exists today that separates Brantwood from the Beacon Hill Club. In addition to that, let's call it green giant screening, we have what I'm going to call streetscape screening, which is shade trees that are at the top of the page. There are 7. They were originally red maples. At the request of John Linson, I have now changed those to swamp white oaks, which are a native species. And that, as a whole, will act as a kind of beautification of the street, in addition to some screening. As they mature, shade trees in general have a really nice canopy, so they have a tendency of providing some, not just shade, but also really nice screening measures that can take place. And the last level of screening is the Norway spruces, which you can see here. They're kind of a dark circle, and those are proposed to be on a 3-foot berm
And my thought process behind them is, God forbid there's actually any views into this place, those will capture any views in. So 3 levels of screening. By the time they're planted, by the time they've matured, you will truly not be able to actually see into this. We have some exhibits that I'm going to show after this, which are renderings, and in addition, I actually have a photo that I took this past weekend. I'll put this back. All right. Everyone likes to talk plants. So I also like to talk about numbers. We are removing 1 tree that is an 18-inch pine that's in red. It's kind of tough to see. It's near Pat's house. That is the only tree that requires replacement. We are planting 61 green giants, 15 Norway spruces, which is a total of 76 evergreens. We are planting 7, thank you. We are planting 7 oaks, in addition to, thank you, we are actually planting 14 oaks and 12 river birches, which is a total of 26 shade trees. And then if that's not enough, we also have 7 flowering trees that are going throughout the parking lot and throughout the site as well. So a lot of trees that are being planted, a lot of what I'm going to call visual impact that's taking place here, beautification of the street, and a very dense evergreen screening. The trees that I mentioned, just so you understand, the green giants have a tendency of growing from anywhere from 2 to 3 feet. They can even grow more per year. The Norway spruces will grow just about 2 feet a year. And the shade trees that are being proposed along Brentwood will grow 3-ish feet a year, just about, give or take. In addition to that, we are proposing a drip irrigation system on these trees. We have already installed, like I mentioned, the first 30. They are currently on a drip system, although now it's winterized. It's a temporary drip system. A permanent one will be installed at the onset of construction, or at the, I should say, end of construction. The stone wall I had mentioned is along Brantwood. There are some areas that are in need of repair. We do plan on repairing them. And then the last one of the last things I would like to mention is the noise reduction that naturally comes with evergreen trees. There is a US-based nonprofit called the Noise Project. They are funded by the National Science Foundation, which is and it's run by Cornell University. They are sort of the standard for when it comes to trees as noise pollution and their assistance. They make reference to multiple studies. I've been through all of the studies. There is a very clear indication that trees have a tendency of reducing noise pollution. And in addition, the best trees to plant are evergreens. As I mentioned, we're planting 76 of them.
Perfect. And as a result of neighborhood meetings, has there been discussion with the club to add additional screening by the paddle courts?
Yes, there will be 4 additional trees that are planted sort of to the right of my plan. I can get up there.
Are they on the plan, or do I have to add that as a condition?
They'll be added as a condition.
As a condition,
Yep.
yes.
Is that it?
No, I have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Did you and the architect work together to prepare an exhibit that shows the existing streetscape views from locations on Brantwood Road, as well as renderings of what those streetscape views would look like upon completion of planting of the landscape plan and 5 years after growth?
We most certainly did.
Okay.
And I am going to take you through those right
Perfect.
now. What I have up on the screen.
So, what is it, L1 through 9?
Yes.
So those would.
Yes, I
Do
have
you wanna
actual
mark
hard
them
copies
each
of them as
a
well.
separate exhibit?
Yeah, what do we want to mark them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Are you going to send her this in
Yes,
electronically?
electronic, yep.
Fine.
There's hard copies here as
Yes.
well for you.
Okay, so A7 would be the first. A7 is L1.
So on L1, you can see a picture that was taken this past weekend on Saturday. This is the 30 original green giants that we planted, as I made reference to on the plan. They are 10 feet tall. They tip out at 10 feet. They will grow very, very quickly. Green giants have a tendency of growing very rapidly. As I mentioned, they can get about 3 to 3 feet a year, especially with the irrigation system. This is the same, stepped back view essentially from where we just were. Again, you can see all of the green giants that were planted, and you can see their visual impact that they will provide. And as I mentioned, with a rapid growing tree like this, in no time at all, you will have essentially an evergreen screen. Oops, sorry. On L3, so what I've done, these trees are actually rendered, and the intent of this is to show what it would look like in about 5 years. So as you saw in the previous, they are a little bit more pyramidal in form. Let me just go back. They're a little bit more pyramidal in form when they're started, and as they grow in, they have a tendency of growing into one another, which is exactly what you want them to do to create a green screen. This shows in about 5 years the additional height that will be added, the lack of view sort of into the property, and it would be the same on the other side. You can also see in the distance the shade trees that we're adding. These are actually a little bit, let's call them young, right? But after 5 years, they'll probably get a little bit more than that than what I'm showing them at right now, but I wanted to be a little bit more conservative in my renderings. And you can also see the wall in the distance. That's the existing wall today that separates the property from the street. Oops. L4 shows the existing conditions as you're looking towards the rink. And as I mentioned, we're looking to repair that wall. So what you're seeing here is a rendering of just that. So this is the next layer of the green giants I had mentioned that have not been planted yet but will be planted. This is showing them at about 6 to 7 feet tall today. The reason that it looks like they're so much taller is because on the actual backside of the wall, there's actually some retaining that's happening. So you actually have about 3 feet or so, give or take, of grade change. And so you have an added benefit of that height. So the trees look and would appear from the street side that they're actually much taller than they actually are today. In addition, you can see sort of the red circles on the ground. Those are just to indicate where the shade trees would be. So, what's not being shown here is actually that you're getting, again, another layer of screening from a shade tree and beautification for the street side. And this is, again, what they would look like after 5 years. So I'm gonna go back, and then you can start to see them grow in, and what you're gonna end up essentially with is a green screen. Now, in this picture, you can see 2 of the layers I was talking about, and that's because that third layer, which is a berm, 3-foot tall berm, with Norway spruces, you can't actually see it, right? It's back there, and the intent of it is for twofold. If, for whatever reason, you would be able to see it, it's back there, and number 2, it's gonna help with that noise reduction, and also gonna help from a visual aesthetic. This is the Brantwood street view. You can see the little line I put in to indicate the 10-foot height. That was, again, these trees have been planted. And that would be sort of the indication of what they would be like over time. So in 5 years down the road, they will have grown pretty substantially and pretty significantly. You can also see sort of to the right of this image, the line that indicates 13 feet. Those are the ones that had been planted that were 6 to 7 feet. So we're getting a big mix of heights that are going on, but more importantly, you're going to get a very nice evergreen screen that faces the street, in addition to shade trees that will allow it to act from a much more residential perspective.
Perfect. And you stated Beacon Hill already planted the 30 green giant arborvitae. Has there been discussion about the possibility of planting certain additional portions of the proposed landscape plan prior to construction?
Absolutely. As weather allows, we would love to do that.
Okay. And in consultation, obviously, with the construction manager.
Yep, consultation with the construction manager and John Linson as well.
And then I think John Linson's report, the only thing he had requested was the substitution of swamp white oaks for the pin oaks, which we've already shown.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions.
So I'm looking at the, let's see, it's the Norway spruce that you have on a 3-foot berm, but I don't see that actually reflected on the grading plan that was done. Can you comment on what that might do to redirect water on the property?
we could certainly bring the engineer back up to testify to that if he'd like to, but the reality is that if you're asking from a plants perspective on what it would affect, how it would affect the plants as a whole, it should absolutely not affect the plants. We're actually gonna be adding that soil in from a perspective of trying to get the actual, root ball to grow in, right? So from a plant's perspective, when you add some fresh topsoil in, it has a much better effect on the actual plant itself. But from a grading perspective, we can certainly bring the engineer up and he can testify to that if need be.
It's not reflected on the grading plan, so I don't know if there's any change in where the.
So we can always, as a condition, make sure that we revise the plan to show that.
Okay, thank you.
And then just one more thing, that was in John Linson's report. Does Beacon Hill Club agree as a condition of approval that all material will be field located by you being present during the selection and installation of the plant material?
Yes, and I was present for the first 30. I will be present for the next, what did we say? 700 or so plants.
What's that condition, all material?
It's that all material will be field located with Mr. Heller present during the selection and installation of the plant material.
And the engineering condition was, what was the drainage
That
condition?
the plan would be revised, the grading plan, to show the berm.
Is there any chance the grading area is going to be impacting the steep slope variances?
No.
Not in that area.
Questions from the board?
Just,
Don?
I have one, which, would you say that an added benefit of all this landscaping besides the noise is some stormwater management benefit?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, plants have a tendency of soaking up of water, right? So the trees themselves have a much greater chance of soaking up any additional water that may or may not be, present in the area. Especially the Norway spruces have a tendency of liking the water. The green giants love the water. Yeah.
River birch.
River birch is one of the greatest
Thirsty.
for water. Yeah. And you'll notice I put those river birches close to the rink on purpose.
Ms. Chiefo?
Yes. I was just getting confused on where,
Sure.
when you looked, talking about where you planted the green giants.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked at the latest city forester's comments that is concerned about the impact of the driveway wall on the north side of the property on the neighbor's streets?
I don't think that that's our
Oh,
view.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Wrong one.
Sorry about
Take
that.
two.
John, second more comments on me?
Just want to see if you're paying attention.
That's right. I definitely did not see that one.
Okay, sorry about that.
Any other,
Yeah.
Questions from the board?
I got a couple. So when did you plant the 30 trees?
I am going to say, based on my notes, 9/24, but I can double check. the
Are they in the city right of way?
No,
Okay. So who's responsible for maintenance?
we are.
And why would you plant 30 on the one side of the wall and the rest of the plantings on yours, I'll say your side of the wall as opposed to the
So,
city side?
so I can most certainly point it out, but the site conditions would not allow for those initial 30. The proposed site conditions would not allow. Hell, go ahead.
I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of leading me to the next question. Why wouldn't you plant those trees on your side of the wall to have a kind of a uniform landscape on one side so it doesn't impinge upon the neighbors? You know, I might be getting picky here, but it kind of looks, and then, I know why you did it because it's going to interfere with your proposed parking and all that. but-
So, yeah, no, it's a good question. So in one of the neighborhood meetings, it actually came up, the neighbors actually preferred
Oh, then
For
I will
those-
be quiet.
those 30 for them to be there, so we put them there.
I'm done.
Yeah. no
Thank you.
And they actually preferred the green giant over what
Right.
was originally
Oh,
proposed.
no,
So that's why we
absolutely,
switched it
yeah.
out.
We switched it out from the Norway spruces. to
I
be
just, I
specific.
find it kind of funny that there's 30 trees on one side of the wall.
Yeah.
Then you go up and everything's on the other side. That's all.
Yep.
I'm done. Thanks.
We're good.
questions from the public? Yeah, I see a
Yeah,
hand
come
up. Come on up, please. And Your name and your address, please. Spell your last name.
Andrea Duberlou, last name spelled L-I-U, 35 Woodford Road. So, Mr. Hill, you mentioned the repair of the rock wall. What about the wall to the left of the entrance gate on Brantwood? When is that going to be repaired?
Yeah, could you maybe point to the plan if I zoomed in? Could you go up there and
Do you know
point?
where the Brantwood gate is?
Yes, I do, but if you don't mind,
So
just
to
for
the left of the
clarification.
Brantwood gate.
You may want to help her. Sure she is.
Help her orient herself, please.
Right here? Yeah. Okay, so right here, this rock, the wall right here is completely falling out. You guys all know this.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll fix, when we fix the wall, we're fixing.
It wasn't
So
mentioned when
the-
you said repair
The wall as a whole will be repaired.
on both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
No other questions from the public? What else you got?
Just the planner.
Let's,
Yep,
Cue
you've
'em up.
got 15 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Guys, we will be taking a 5-minute break at one point, and I mean 5.
Mr. Phil, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Phillips has appeared before this board many times in the past. Do we accept his credentials?
We do. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll sort of cut to the chase. I mean, you've heard the proposal from a number of witnesses in terms of the modernization and upgrades and improvements to the existing club. They do trigger a number of variances, none of which I would characterize as being significant or substantial in nature. Nonetheless, we have to advance planning proofs in support of the relief consistent with the requirements of both the municipal land use statute and relevant case law. So, as you've heard, this property is located in the R43 district. It's principally a residential district. However, private recreational facilities are permitted as a conditional use. Applicant meets all but one of the conditional use standards for the use, as you've heard, and that is for lot coverage, and that triggers a D3 variance, which is why we're before the zoning board. The applicant is also seeking C bulk variance relief for the number of parking stalls, for steep slope disturbance, and for the size and height of the accessory structure, which we've commonly referred to as Pat's house. In terms of the planning proofs, I'll start with the D3 variance for coverage. Interestingly, the maximum lot coverage for private recreational facilities as a conditional use standard in your ordinance is 15%. As you've heard, the applicant's proposal is for 46.37%, but clearly, I think we all have to recognize that the existing coverage at the facility is 45.72%. So the actual proposed increase is relatively de minimis.
I think it's on the computer.
It's not mine.
Not me.
$10 at Rotary, but that's okay.
I'm sorry?
The lot coverage was always over.
Yeah, what I was
since
going to
it was-
say is that the zone standards post-date the original construction of the club, and they also apply to other lands in the city of Summit. This isn't the only land that's within the limits of the R43 district. So regardless, we still need a C3 variance. The standard of proof, as the board is aware, basically emanates from the seminal case, which is known as Coventry versus Westwood, where the court clearly indicated that the burden of proof isn't the same as a D1 use variance, recognizing that the underlying zoning contemplates this particular use. So instead, what the court says, the applicant has to demonstrate that the site can overcome any problems that may be associated with the fact that the lot coverage that we are requesting exceeds the ordinance standards. Put another way, can the site still function adequately and without also adversely impacting the public at large, again, notwithstanding the deficient lot coverage? I think the short answer is yes. I think from a special reasons standpoint, while significant improvements and upgrades are being proposed to the club, as I mentioned, the increase over the existing coverage is really imperceptible as a practical matter. And for the record, I believe that the upgrades are tangible in terms of overall benefits to the club and the members, the guests, and the public that utilize it. And again, just to summarize, modernizing sort of older, outdated buildings, increasing, formalizing the parking supply, enhancing the on-site circulation, providing for additional storage for equipment, ADA compliance. You've heard from all the witnesses as to what the benefits overall are to the property. Secondly, recognizing that the purpose of a lot coverage from a regulatory standpoint is essentially twofold. One is to control stormwater runoff, and the other is to assure aesthetically that the property contains adequate open space and landscaping. So it's basically twofold, the purpose of the coverage requirement. The applicant's engineer testified with regard to stormwater, how it will be appropriately managed on the site. You just heard from our landscape architect, who described the new landscaping and the associated plantings that are to provide visual relief, not only internally, but perhaps more importantly, to screen development and related impervious coverage from the public realm and adjacent residential properties. I would also point out, in terms of the Coventry Westwood test, that the applicant complies with all the other conditional use standards, including the building coverage requirement. It's well below the allowable building coverage requirement, as well as the other relevant R43 zone standards, which also apply to this application, including for setbacks and including for FAR, where as much as 25% is permitted by zoning, and we're roughly, with this proposal, about a third of that. So I think it's readily evident from a planning perspective that the applicant can overcome any problems associated with the minimal excess coverage, and I see no substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the zone plan if that D3 variance is granted. Turning to the bulk variance relief, parking, number of off-street parking stalls, I think it's either 149 or 150 are technically required for this use. You heard from Mr. Paragoy, our traffic and parking expert, at the last hearing on this variance. I would emphasize from a planning perspective, I think what's most critical is that the board had previously granted a variance to the applicant, essentially concluding that it was, I think, either 72 or 74 spaces were adequate to serve the club. In other words, at that point, there was an establishment of sort of a baseline need, and that, coupled with the fact that the site improvements here, as you've heard, are not intended to increase existing club membership or result in any change in the current operation. Still, the applicant is physically adding 8 new spaces as part of the current application, although the improvements are not, again, adding to parking demand as a practical matter. I see this as a C2 type variance where the benefits associated with only providing as much parking as necessary, notwithstanding the ordinance requirement, and therefore limiting overall site disturbance and avoiding additional impervious coverage, substantially outweighing any detrimental impacts. Steep slope disturbance. Your ordinance regulates any disturbance of slopes over 15%. This is being proposed in relation to the carriage house expansion, and it is also relatively minimal in nature. It is roughly about 2,700 square feet of exceedance of the ordinance limits on slope disturbance over 15%. I think in this instance, the key is that the area to be disturbed consists of slopes sort of within the interior developed portion of the site next to the existing carriage house. This area has been previously disturbed. I think you can make a distinction between these slopes where the ground has actually been modified over time with the bulk of the property slopes, which are along the perimeters, have not been touched, they remain vegetated, and we are not proposing any disturbance of those slopes on the property. I think if you look at where the existing carriage house is located and look at the proposed expansion, it's really sort of unavoidable in terms of the nature and scope of the proposal. Again, with the applicant seeking to upgrade and modernize the carriage house. As was described by our site engineer, there would be no adverse impacts associated with this disturbance, either on or off-site, due to the on-site stormwater management measures and safeguards, which our engineer, as I mentioned, had testified to. I actually see this as sort of a combination C1 and C2 type of variance. Again, recognizing that the disturbance allows the applicant to upgrade the club facilities in the most logical location to accommodate the expansion. And I do not see any substantially adverse impacts to the public good or to the zone plan should the board grant this variance. Again, only a small amount of slope disturbance, again, within sort of a previously developed portion of the site, rather than the perimeter areas where there are what I characterize as sort of natural slopes. And then lastly, there are a number of technical variances associated with the improvements to Pat's house. And this is because Pat's house is considered an accessory structure, and we're in an underlying residential zone, as I mentioned, R43. And these variances stem from the fact that the city has sort of strict limits for accessory structures in residential zones. And as I read the ordinance, I think they're principally intended for garages as accessory to a single-family house, and maybe even sheds, as opposed to Pat's house, which is really integral to the club and already exceeds the ordinance limits. So the ordinance has a limit on the size of an accessory structure of 576 square feet. Also, dimensions of no more than 24 by 24, which if you do that multiplication, guess what you get, 576 square feet. And to me, that it is sort of intended for up to a two-car detached garage, those particular measurements. Pat's house in the existing condition is 1,120 square feet, so it already exceeds. And the proposal is just to do a minor 55 square foot addition on the ground floor. Again, bottom line, I see this variance as really insignificant, and especially in the context of a club which has multiple buildings and improvements. It's not a single-family house where you're looking to control or limit basically a garage or a shed or any other pertinent structure that goes with a single-family development. I think the same rationale applies for the increase in the height of this structure. Again, there's a 15-foot height limit. I think, again, it's intended for single-family structures rather than a club with sort of multiple facilities where you may have issues in determining what's principal and what's an accessory structure. And it's already partially a two-story structure. The applicant proposing to raise the height, which I think is 19.2 feet now, to 27.7 feet. And we'll also increase the two-story portion over what currently exists, and the balance would comply with that one-story 15-foot height limit. So again, given the conditions, the context, the function and the aesthetic upgrades proposed, I think the relief in this instance can be granted, and I think it would be a C2 type variance. I'd also kind of would indicate that the distance of Pat's house from the nearest residential properties, which are actually the ones at the higher elevations, there are intervening woods, there's a significant separation, and with regard to the houses across Brentwood Drive, there will be significant new landscaping, which will basically screen the structure, which I think is 170 feet away from that property frontage on Brentwood. So again, I think this relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment of the zone plan. And then just lastly, for the record, since I am proffering C2 variance relief, I believe all of the bulk variances would advance at least three purposes of the statute. They would be purposes A, G, and I. And just briefly, A would be to guide development in a manner that promotes the public welfare. G is to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses. And purpose I is to promote a desirable visual environment. And I would also just cite one of the other master plan goals, which is the city encourages development proposals which promote recreational opportunities within Summit to serve present and future residences. So I think that covers, Mr. Chairman, all the relief that we're seeking.
Questions?
No questions? Thank you. I don't have any questions either. It was a very thorough presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions from the board?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned 55 square feet on Pat's house, but you mentioned first floor. What's the second floor expansion? So I noticed in the plans here, you're only showing about 55 feet, but we're expanding the second floor. What is?
It is 885 square feet. I'm sorry? The built portion's 885.
You have to come up and use a microphone and identify yourself.
The architect, Brian Cooney, testified earlier. That's yours. It's 885 square feet built and about 360 of the deck portion on the second floor.
Right, so
But the reason that it's 55 is because the ordinance talks about the ground floor area,
Okay.
so that's what we're noting, that it's an additional 55 square feet to the ground floor.
thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? If it's an older building, Pat's house, why did we talk the fire department out of suppression? And why wouldn't we want to have that in there?
I think that's a question for the architect.
Well,
as
I'm
opposed to-
saying,
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's more, and if you're looking for variances on that building, don't you want to protect it?
Yes, but I think the variances, unless I'm mistaken, Mr. Chairman, don't relate to the additional improvements that we've made that the architect described in response to the fire officials' request. I didn't think that triggered any other relief other than the relief that we originally had requested, if that makes any sense. I think I had that right.
I really do not understand not putting the fire suppression into an older building, but that's, I don't know who I'm
That's a-
supposed to ask it of,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're the last witness, so
Yeah.
what's my shot?
Not my expertise, though.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
I would, I would stand by the.
They may want to
the
consider it.
testimony of our architect.
If I can expand on it a little bit, it's not required by the building code. It's not, because of the
I
size.
know,
It's not
I
required.
heard you say that.
It's
but-
always,
but it's
it's always a
still-
good choice, in my
Oh,
opinion.
You know,
as a-
I still
but-
come from the old time when the fire department said, we'd like a thing, you got a thing there, that's what they wanted, we
You
put
can't,
it in.
unfortunately, you can't force them to do it, but, it would,
Well, we're doing a lot of other things that we're letting them do, maybe they could do something for us. Any, other questions?
One response to the last comments. So we did look at the fire suppression for Pat's house, and the closest fire line to the building is down steep slopes through the hockey rink down to Brentwood Ave. It would be a 170-foot trench that would have to go all the way to the street. It is cost prohibitive, very cost prohibitive to actually adding it for about 8 sprinkler heads, which by code we don't require. So that was our are impediment to doing it.
The other thing is, I mean, the building's been there for 70 years and they haven't had any problems. They're adding an additional door for egress in case there's a problem, and there are alarms in the building. So I think there is sufficient fire safety precautions that are being taken.
Would you say that the building use is going to significantly increase with the addition of a second floor and the viewing area? Because
Not necessarily. I think it provides a better viewing for people watching, but it doesn't necessarily mean that more people are going to actually use the building at one time.
is there another place where you could draw the water for the sprinklers besides running a trench? I mean, you have a pool and a rink, both use water on either side of Pat's house, and then you have your main building. So there are obviously other water lines. I think a trench is, you know, I could see where you maybe would say, okay, digging a trench specifically for Pat's house, but just pulling water out of another line on the property, have you looked at that?
Yeah, we've explored, we've actually had all the options looked at, and the way to get sprinklers to this building, you'd have to, if you could follow my mouse, you can't pull off the other building's water source. It doesn't have enough, actually, water capacity to do it, so you'd have to go all the way to the street to get the capacity you would need, based on our engineering. So you'd have to go straight down this path, essentially around or under the carriage house addition and through all the way to Brentwood.
Maybe this, I should have asked this earlier, maybe as a trade-off, forget Pat's building, how about the main building? Is the new area already sprinkled?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
fully sprinkled, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, depending on the occupancy use of Pat's house, like, you know, it's always nice to have a wish list if you could get it done. But in this case, at least they put the extra exit in, and it does have a fire alarm system, so it has early warning. So, you know, yeah,
Okay.
because you're not required by the building code, I get it, so you're good.
All right, only because we're running out of time. Other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question, but to our attorney. For the electric vehicle spots, what is the regulations for this type of property?
Oh, they're complicated, to be
Oh.
honest. I mean, I'd have to defer, you know, the state's made all these requirements now with the electrical vehicle spots, like you go by a Wawa, and they have them there, and then they don't count them in our parking calculation. Things like, I haven't looked at it recently.
So if I could just jump in, the traffic expert actually answered that, and he did in his testimony state that only one is required, and that's what we're proposing, and then you get a bonus counted towards your off-street parking. So even though we're putting in 8 spaces, we get the bonus, so it's 9 spaces.
So you only put in one EV space?
And 1 EV, which is, that's the only thing that's required.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Any questions for this witness from the public? Seeing none, I think we're going to have to conclude tonight
Okay.
for this case and bring you back on the,
I just have a summation, and that's it.
how much time do you think you're going to need?
7 minutes?
I could do it in 6.
I can do this in 5, no, no, okay, let's go.
There's also public comments.
Yes,
It's not gonna work.
After the 7 minutes?
they tell me it's not going to work
No,
Mr.
your
Chairman,
comments have to come before the,
before the
attorney.
summation.
Should we open
Okay,
up for public
let
comments
us
since
do
it's
the
fresh?
public comments, because you're here tonight, let us do those. If there are any public comments, please come forward now. Give us your name, your address, you'll be sworn in, and again, use the mic.
and kindly raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name for the record. Spell
Yeah,
your
my
last
name is Matthew Rosenkrantz. I live on 24 Brentwood Drive.
All right, do you need the spelling? You're good? Okay.
Yeah, I live directly across Brentwood Drive from the Beacon Hill Ice Rink. My wife, 2 daughters, and I moved here in 2021, and we love our neighborhood and living in Summit. One thing we hadn't expected about our otherwise quiet residential neighborhood was the ice rink activity, including the use of the Zamboni and the small tractor that moves ice and snow back and forth from it. My daughters will be awakened on or before 6 a.m. and often after 11 p.m., even on school nights. Over the last 6 months, the club leadership and employees, especially Pascal and Russ, have given us reason to believe they are acting in good faith and want to maintain good neighbor relationships. They have agreed to shorten the weekday rink hours, we thought, between 7 a.m. and 10:30 p.m.
That is
Well,
correct.
Tonight I heard 11 p.m. I'm a little confused on that. Except in emergencies, such as inclement weather. This means my daughters will be able to sleep properly and wake up ready for school. They have agreed to turn off the bright rink lights when there aren't people on the ice, which they have recently been doing, which also helps us greatly. So far this season, they appear to be keeping the new schedule, and it makes a huge difference. In addition, as I understand it, the club has the opportunity to acquire an electric Zamboni, which will reduce noise, and we would surely appreciate that. However, we can't ignore the difficulty of the first 2 winters we spent in Summit. The club's attorney has justified the use of noisy equipment earlier and later than normally allowed as being permitted by regulations intended to facilitate emergency snow removal, which I think kind of flies in the face of common sense and neighborliness, regardless of its technical legality. We also feel that at times they have understated the level of disruption produced by their current equipment. This makes me nervous. Many years ago, our neighbors who have been in the neighborhood longer shared with us that there was another phase of club planning and construction where another agreement was reached between the club and neighbors. That agreement promised, among other things, that the ice rink would be moved to a different side of the club. Of course, that never came to pass, and that agreement was long forgotten. Even though, as I said, that was years ago, and the club leadership and its membership has changed, that history also makes me nervous. Therefore, in case the club, at some time in the future, cease their good neighbor practices, we hope that the zoning board will ensure that the agreed-upon restrictions in noise be made enforceable, and that these new plans and plantings will be maintained through the future. Thank you.
Is there a we did this once before, and I'm forgetting how we did it, to make somebody carry out various requirements of actions. Well, we do have this.
So we have the conditions of approval.
Right, that's
Which
it.
are enforceable by the zoning officer.
Right, can we explain to the public how that works?
Go ahead, Dennis. Mr. Gavin.
We've shared, the conditions of approval are part of a negotiation with the neighbors. Just several meetings we've had with them over the time, and they've all
You have a
received
copy.
copies.
But
of
if all of a sudden your successor, 10 years from now, stops doing these,
Yes.
Are we intending to record the conditions? We could record the resolution.
You want to record the resolution, the whole resolution?
Just record the resolution.
Sure, we can do that.
Then we're not,
That's fine.
then there'll be a record, there'll be a public record.
Sure.
Because when it's 11:15.
No,
No, you
I'm not
can't
gonna
talk.
let you do that. You're gonna have to
Can't
come
talk
up
then.
and get under oath if you want to talk.
Can I ask a question before we get the next
Sure,
person?
you're the boss.
No, I'm not. Far from it. I think my wife is.
Well, that's true.
Can I just get something clarified? The Zamboni drives itself, or is it pulled by a tractor?
No, somebody drives the Zamboni.
So it's self-propelled
one-
then?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay,
Raise your right hand. Do you
I was up here before.
No, but I didn't put you under oath.
right, it's a difference when you ask a question and
Okay.
when you're telling us what you
Do
think,
you-
different process.
Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give this matters the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your full name for the record, spell your last name.
Andrea Dugree-Liu, Liu, 35 Woodfern Road. When the Zamboni's going at 11:15, so what do? We don't want to call the police. I don't want to go out over to the ice rink and say, in my pajamas, like, could you turn it off?
I think what you do is the next business day, you contact the zoning official and you say, if they do it once, we're gonna live and let live, right? But if it becomes
We have.
an all-week pattern, You call the zoning official, and then they will contact them and warn them that if they don't stop doing it, they're gonna get issued a notice of violation. And that's the
And how much
procedure.
weight does that actually carry?
I don't want, they don't wanna go to municipal
No,
court, they can be fined $2,000 or, you know, it's a pain in the neck, they're not gonna.
Nor do they want the PR.
Correct.
So I believe that if we record it, you know, I think it should be mostly okay. I
Okay.
mean, do I know for a fact that they will never go beyond 11 o'clock? I know for a fact they will. But I hope that they,
And they
doesn't hope and
testified to
offer.
that.
Right,
They've
we are
testified to the
agreeing
fact
that
that
we are
there
not,
will
right.
be occasions when there are games that will go past
course.
10:30.
Of
That's
course.
gonna happen, and the Zamboni has to
I
go
don't
out
think that was-
afterwards.
That
Time
wasn't
out,
testimony.
time out.
No, no time.
No,
Mr. Chairman,
keep
I
going.
don't think that was, I don't recall that part of the testimony, that there were going to be games past 10:30.
That
No,
could
there's,
happen,
there's no skating after 10 o'clock.
right.
No skating after 10 o'clock.
But they have to clean up and get,
But we're talking about being transparent and honest.
exactly.
So when the club absolutely means that they're gonna stop based on their promise to us, but might it happen sometime that they go a little beyond? Everyone has to understand that that might happen, that's all.
The intention is to comply with the conditions of approval, which
Correct.
we will record.
Right.
Okay. Anything
you.
else? Any other folks wish to opine on this particular application? Seeing none, before you, we're not going to have time for your summation, sorry.
Okay.
So if everyone agrees, we will carry this to December the 9th, the same as the prior one. Is there a motion to do so, and you'll grant us the time to act and?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to carry to December 9th.
Second.
Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Just wanna ask the question. Nobody else in the public needed to be heard on this case.
That's what I asked him for.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay.
Ms.
I
Zahn,
do.
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Feskins.
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, we are going to
Thank
take
you.
a 5-minute break because we all need it. Quarter of, we'll be back. No, here he comes. Okay. As soon as he walks in the door, he can listen while we're going. Well,
Board member.
I am?
Yes.
Oh,
Mr.
well,
I came out, you went in.
Okay.
why did you let him in?
If he's an alternate and you don't need his vote, you can start.
Well, actually, what I am going to do is announce that I'm going to change the agenda slightly. I'm going to table the part of the closed session relative to the RFQs, and we'll do that at one of our next meetings, which will take that out, but we will maintain the review of, how did we quote it? The review of policy and procedures. We'll leave that in the closed session. So that just gave you an extra few minutes there. So we will keep going with you until probably 10:35 or so.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully we won't need all
Is
that
he back?
time.
Do we have any exhibit,
No, we're still waiting for him.
do we have exhibits that we are going to mark during the proceeding that we can mark now?
Yes, can we mark this Exhibit A1? I did have, send it to Stephanie, if we could mark that,
All right? Do you have any
Okay.
other exhibits other than A1?
maybe.
Mr. Alay is here, so we can, he's going to listen while he walks.
Nothing else, this should be it.
You're up.
Easy peasy.
Okay.
Now we're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Samantha Alfonso of Alfonso and Weber. Jim keeps getting upset with me, by the way, for not mentioning our firm name. Hi, Jim, I know he's watching. Thank you. Here on behalf of the applicants, Bill and Emily Ekman, for their property at 44 Lennox Road. They have been working since 2021 on the construction of their new home. It is mid-construction, I understand, near completion,
I'm sorry, Miss Alfonso, can you just get a little closer to the mic? Yeah, I can't hear you too well.
maybe lower. Is
Yeah.
that better? Okay.
Yeah, much better.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's better.
After purchasing their property in 2021, they started designing their new home. It's currently under construction. This proposal is really for the exterior improvements for steep slope disturbance of 3,800 square feet, where none is permitted of the 15% or more slopes, to allow the front walkway. I'm just gonna circle the areas that we're talking about on the screen. Can you see that blue circle? No, mine needs to be a little bit bigger.
Why don't you leave that to your professionals to show us the steep slope area?
I'm just showing what areas we're talking about as part of the proposal and what is part of the construction permit.
Go ahead.
Okay, the pool and this area of the patio is part of this proposal. Everything else has already been permitted as part of the construction permit.
So that was less than the amount of steep slope that can be disturbed?
I'm sorry?
What you did was less than the 1,000 feet or the 1,500 square feet that can be disturbed, right?
What's permitted under the
There's a
construction
limit
permit?
to what
Yes,
you
yes, it's
can't
under
exceed.
1,000 square
So now
feet.
you want to add the pool, so now you have to disturb more area.
And the walkway,
Yes.
they'd like to move to the
Yes,
front.
we're good, we're good.
Okay,
I'm trying to help.
thank you. I missed you, Dennis. It's been a while.
I'm a distraction.
Could I have Bill and Emily sworn in?
Yes. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm a testimony you're about to give this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes. State your full name for the record, spell your last name, ladies first, because I'm old school.
Emily Cremio, Emily, and last name is spelled C-R-E-M-I-U-X.
Bill Ekman, E-C-K-M-A-N.
All right, we're good to go.
Thank you. Bill and Emily, could you please let us know, first, you own the property, is that right?
That's correct.
And can you tell us a little bit about the existing and proposed?
Yeah, look, we're excited to be here. As Sam mentioned, we're, the exterior of the home has been virtually completed, so now we're focused on the landscaping and the stormwater management plan. The first priority and why we're here is improving the slope to ensure the runoff of the excess rainwater is permanently handled properly. The rear downhill neighbor had during the summer storm in July and August, had some excess rainwater from our property. So that's why we're here to get the approval and then we put in retaining walls at the rear of the property. I think we're here for the high slope or the steep slope to get that approved, so we can then put in the retaining wall as well as the dry well system to help manage all this runoff permanently.
And you're also proposing a pool and pergola, is that right?
Yeah, pool.
You're gonna have to speak up louder.
Yep. Yes, we're looking to do a pool, a pergola, a patio. As I mentioned, the retaining walls, the landscaping, the related drainage, and then this, the walkway in the front to Lennox Road.
And did you have a chance to take a look at the administrative reports of the board's professionals and agencies?
We did, and we agreed to them, and subject to the comments that our experts have.
Did you have experts assist you with this application?
We did, right there, and Andrew Clark on engineering, and then Harmony Design Group, Mark Nissen.
And you had a chance to speak with your neighbors, you briefly mentioned, but could you just discuss that a little bit further?
Yeah, Emily and I spoke with, all of our neighbors in the past month. We gave them, sort of an update on the project and the plan, and
And they were all here.
planning to, we cleared them out. We're up, I told them we're planning to move in the spring, and they're positive and look forward to the construction being finished, and they're happy our house is now finished and we've moved on to the landscaping. As I mentioned, due to that summer storm we had in early August, there was erosion on the rear neighbor. So after that happened, he reached out to us, to Emily and I. I immediately connected with him, looped in our professionals. We sent, confirmed to him that this is the plan. We sent him a detailed email to properly ensure, adequate stormwater management. And Andrew's here today to help walk through that, those details to ensure it's properly addressed.
Thank you. That's all I have for these
Any questions
witnesses.
for the owners? Okay, move on.
Thank you.
You just stay there.
You can sit. Andrew, you want to hold the mic?
Kindly raise your right hand. Mr. Clark, do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And, Mr. Chairman, will you accept Mr. Clark?
Yes, we do. Welcome back.
Seen me too much, clearly.
Not too much.
All right, is this working? All right, I'll jump right in. I'm making reference to plans that have been submitted as part of this application. The first sheet I was going to reference is the topographic survey dated December 17th, 2022, and then last revised June 13th, 2024. The topographic survey I conducted initially in November of 2021 when the project was getting going. I did the topographic survey of the property, and I'll just briefly outline those existing conditions that were in place before any work took place. So this is lot 20 in block 2501. I have an inset up here indicating where on Lennox Road it is. Whitredge is just to the north, the intersection with Whitredge. We had an existing dwelling in the location as shown on the survey. There was a driveway coming around the right side to sort of a big parking area in the back, and then extending further back to the detached garage, which was positioned pretty far back on the lot. There's also a patio that was servicing and a modest walk to the front door. The steep slope areas that are in question and are subject of this application there are two areas of steep slopes. There's one in the front that sort of wraps around a little bit. There's a piece in the middle that's not steep slopes by definition. And that was all just to the left of the driveway along the frontage. And then in the back left corner, to the left of that existing detached garage, there was another smaller area of slopes. That area in the back is about 1,250 square feet. The area in the front is about 3,700 square feet. Those areas, on a relative basis, I've been in front of this board a number of times for numerous steep slope applications, and in this case, it's not a predominant characteristic of the property, which is sometimes or often the case in Summit, certainly for the variance applications. You know, the steep slopes make up about 13.5% of the property here, just for reference. The existing drainage pattern sort of in the middle of the house, everything from about the center of that existing house forward flow towards and pitch towards the road. And from there back, it pitches from the left side by that lot 21 towards the driveway, and then to the rear. So it comes around, the drainage patterns flow would come around towards the driveway and then head towards the neighbor in the back. To the right of the driveway and garage area was pretty flat, but ultimately also pitched to this area that's sort of the low spot behind that original existing detached garage. And there were no observable stormwater measures, control measures on site in the original survey. The roof leaders discharged at grade, and there were no dry wells that were identified or observable. So there was sort of uncontrolled runoff condition in the existing condition. So as was indicated, a permit was secured. That permit did maintain thresholds and have silt fences established that respected those steep slope areas. There was a little bit of disturbance in the front where the walkway was coming out, but we were within that permitted waiver limit of 1,000 square feet. And a permit was secured for the dwelling and the driveway and a walk that was originally planned to come out and then turn immediately to the driveway, and of course the patio area. Originally what was contemplated was the pool arrangement in the back right corner. As this project has progressed, the owners have had a chance to contemplate the outside a little more carefully. And so what's driving the need for the disturbance of steep slopes at this point is the decision for two things primarily. One is to take that pool that was being considered in the back, sort of past the end of the driveway, and position it in the back left corner where it's better connected and oriented to the outdoor space in the patio, and also much more directly visible from the living areas. When it was in the back right, it was sort of past the garage, and it was a lot harder in considering it to have line of sight, which, you know, is usually an ideal condition, certainly if you have kids. So that's driving the disturbance in this rear steep slope section in the back, and we're not quite proposing to disturb all of it, but a good portion of it, 1,000 square feet of the 1,250. And then the other factor is to create a more formal front entrance where you have the walk coming straight up to the front door instead of coming all over to the driveway. I think the driving intent there is to not have guests that have to walk, you know, partially up the driveway in order to get to the walk, but have a more conventional, sort of, I guess, old school formal entrance into the front door. And so the disturbance of this in the front, we're not really like restructuring it so much as accounting for the disturbance that will occur by putting that walkway in. And then when it's done, the grades will be a little more modest along the walkway area and then landscaped. So that's what's driving the disturbance of these two areas. To frame out then how we're approaching stormwater, obviously whenever we do these kinds of things, that's one of the main concerns. In fact, for any project in Summit, it's a main concern, but certainly a heightened concern when we're disturbing steep slopes and seeking variance relief. So what we're proposing to do is have a tank system in the front. It was originally in the permit plans contemplated to be in the backyard, but in light of some of the effects that we saw during the construction with the big rain event we had in mid-August, I think everyone probably remembers that 4 inches that came in 2 hours. It seems to make sense to redirect that dry well system to the front, if for no other reason, that when there's an overflow condition in an extreme storm event, it won't be overflowing to the rear to the neighbor who's already been affected during the construction process. So the proposed stormwater system is going to account for the surround of the pool, the entire dwelling roof area, and the driveway. There was a comment by the board engineer about converting the inlet at the end of the driveway to a trench drain. We have no problem doing that. That's not a problem. What we have in the back in terms of picking up this patio and any runoff across the yard area, this yard's going to be, it's a little irregular now in terms of the grading, so we're going to get a pretty regularly graded backyard. It's going to be about a 2%, 2.5% slope. That's going to move towards the wall that we're putting along the back. This wall at its highest point is a little under 4 feet, and the rest of it is less than that. It's only less than 2 feet here at the back corner. And so that where the belly of the yard is, where all that flow was going before, is the highest point of the wall at about 4 feet, a little under. So what we're going to do is on top of that wall, we're going to put an infiltration drain. So it's a passive drain with a 6-inch perforated pipe and a stone trench, and usually put some pea gravel or river rock on the surface, so it's got some aesthetic value to it. But any water that makes its way to this wall will be captured in that perforated pipe, routed in piping down and to the dry well. All the roof leaders, of course, will tie directly into the dry well. For permitting purposes in Summit, you're required to manage the increase in impervious coverage for a project. In this case, that's about 2,800 square feet of new impervious that we're proposing. What we're proposing to manage with the dry well system is about 7,900 square feet. So it's not quite 3 times what you would normally be looking at a requirement for a permit. It's like 2.7 times that amount. So it's a very robust system that's going to result ultimately in a net improvement in the stormwater, especially considering the existing condition had no formal stormwater management to speak of. So that's the proposed stormwater system, capturing the house, driveway, and whatever makes its way from the patio. I think that truthfully, under the overwhelming majority of storms, the runoff from this patio or even this patio isn't ever really going to reach our system in the first place, because we have a very gently graded yard, landscaping, normal storms. You don't get surface runoff across a big yard like that unless you have really intense rains. And, you know, just to keep it in reference, the system is designed to handle 3 inches of rain, so a 3-inch rainstorm. That so far, I just double checked before it came out tonight, we've seen that 3 times this year. Of course, the one time was 4 inches and it was in 2 hours, so that captures everyone's attention. But 3 is about a normal number for my observations over the past 15, 20 years. Usually get between 2 and 4 events that are 3 inches or more in a 24-hour period. So we're in the norm right now this year so far. So that type of storm only happens a few times a year, and we're designed to handle that. So it would be that extraordinary storm, like that 4-inch, the problem with that was it was super intense. So even if you have a robust system design, sometimes it doesn't capture it all because it's just coming so fast. But that's the summary. I think that we've presented a very strong stormwater plan, and that the disturbance to the steep slope areas is going to be properly managed in terms of the construction process, and at the end of the process with a fully landscaped site and properly graded area with the stormwater in place, I think there should be no problem with approving a variance like this, as long as it's, as I said, managed properly during the construction process. The finished product, I think, is going to be beautiful and well-designed and have a strong stormwater component to it. And with that, I can either run through the memo, or we can start with questions, however you want to do it.
Let Marie pick up the questions that you haven't picked up.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about that dry well system. If you could go back to that, and maybe you said it and I missed it, but that, that inlet that's back by the patio,
Right.
that's, can you talk about how that is supposed to collect the patio and bring it to the front?
Yeah, so the inlet that's near the patio is more for, say, owner purposes, in that the left side of the house, it's pretty flat in there, it's pretty gently graded. And so I wanted to put that in there just as an extra measure in case we get some accumulated water near the pool area and would get in there. But in terms of overall grading and how any runoff from this patio would end up in the system, it would be any water that passes into the yard from that and then makes its way to the wall in the back. Again, I think, except for those, larger storms, it's not really even going to reach that, but we have that drain along the wall in case it does, for those few storms where it does. That's instead of having a drain right along the edge of the patio. I think that, in other words, the passive reality of that yard is that most rainfalls are just going to go into the grass in the yard, and then they're going to infiltrate into the ground. On the extraordinary storms or the bigger storm events where you get flows that develop, those flows will make their way to the drain that sits atop that wall.
Okay. So now, then let's talk about that drain that's along the wall. I just wasn't, it wasn't really depicted clearly for me, where that 6-inch PVC comes to the back of the garage. I'm not sure how it's getting to the front.
Right, so, yeah, there's a lot of line work in the back there, so it gets a little hard to follow. But so the drain begins sort of just behind where the pool and the pergola is, and we may want to extend that all the way to the end of the wall. But that comes down, it wraps the corner of the wall, and then the drain ends at the end of the wall, but then the pipe continues down along that 207 contour, and I have it turning towards the house there.
Right.
And then running in another trench probably alongside the house, along the roof leaders as a separate pipe that would come around and tie into the tanks in the front. So it's going to sort of follow around where the roof leaders are going.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
And you did ask about the inverts. I did attempt to label them, but again, there's a lot going on in some of these areas. But I have an invert labeled here. The invert of that pipe from here to the end of the wall, where I have another label for the invert, it comes down 2 feet here, and then from there to the tank, it comes down about 5 feet.
Okay.
So there's definitely enough pitch, and that was all considered.
That's really what I was concerned about. Right,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we left it that. Okay. One thing I don't know that I said this in my letter, but I was noticing the emergency generator and the air conditioning units.
Right.
I know that they're not part of it, but are they screened?
Yeah, those are required to be screened per the ordinance, as is the pool equipment in the back. I think you may have mentioned the pool equipment, or someone did ask. Certainly that'll have to be screened in accordance with the ordinance requirements.
Okay. And I did note that your seepage pits are oversized, so I just wanted to make sure the board noted that they were robust for what you were collecting.
Yeah, and you had asked a question in the front end of your memo about the variance plan versus the lot grading plan. I think it's a good point. I deliberately made this and labeled it as a variance plan for this purpose, so we wouldn't get confused with the lot grading plan that's already on file and under permit. So what will happen is if we have a positive result tonight, I will fully revise the grading plan to match what's on this variance plan with all the detailing and the soil erosion notes, and we'll have to update the soil erosion permit, which we have, So it'll have to be updated to the changes.
All right, that makes sense. I think that was all I needed. Claire, well, you know what, one more thing. So your total disturbance on the lot, is that
Yeah, it's-
3,800 square feet of steep slope?
You're like my checker.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. That is a typo down in the little legend that I have there.
Okay.
It should be 3,800 square feet is the total disturbance.
Okay,
Quite right.
okay, I think those were all my questions.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question regarding the disturbance that you're proposing in the front. Are there any trees that are being removed as a result of that? I'm sorry if I don't know the
No.
site very well.
No.
So it's not disturbing that, but it's more for aesthetic reasons?
Yeah, and because we're gonna put a walk cutting into that slope, so, we're gonna have to shape out, the ground around it and sort of normalize that for landscaping.
But not a removal of any significant trees?
No.
As a result?
That's correct.
Also in that back area, the benefits of you leveling that back area with the retaining wall and the drainage is to help control and convey and redirect some of the stormwater. that comes
Certainly,
off the
yes,
property.
yes.
Thank you.
Board members.
This drawing that you have up here, I think the one that I have, maybe the only difference is that, does everybody have one like that where the house is not shaded? Or, I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
making sure we
interesting,
have the
the
same
shading-
plan.
The shading is a little hit or miss depending on the printing. So this one I printed tonight at Staples, and the shading is not as prominent as those.
Okay, so it is the same plan.
It
It's-
is the same plan. This
dated-
is
what
last,
the date?
last revised November 5th, 2024. So we're right by my signature, right down where your hand just, no,
Okay,
to the
well, this
right.
one says.
Right under your finger.
The one that I see says July
Right.
20, so I'm looking.
Right,
yeah.
but the
Oh, right there.
revision
Got
date
it,
is right
got it.
there, yeah.
Okay, so it's
So that is the
one.
same plan. Your
Okay.
shading is just better on that one.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're looking at the same thing. And then, was there a walkway in the original house? There
Yes.
was no walkway design, or there was? it's-
Well, you mean in the original permit plan?
In the original permit?
Right,
plan,
so the
yeah.
permit plan, we came out and then we came straight across to the driveway.
Okay, so that,
Right.
what looks like a heavy line there, okay. And then, the last question is, can you clarify, you had said something about, now, our stormwater always has to be designed for a 3-inch storm, but you mentioned something about it being 2.7 times. What
Right,
is
so
that?
maybe that was a little confusing.
Because
So-
I was looking at the volume, I'm like, it's definitely not 2.7 times.
So yes, we're required to design for a 3-inch storm, and that 3-inch storm shall be applied to the increase in impervious coverage that's being proposed.
Correct.
And so in this case, what I'm pointing out is that the increase in coverage is about 2,800 square feet, but we're managing 7,900 square feet. So that 7,900 square feet that we're managing with this system is about 2.7 times what you would normally be required to handle for a permit process.
Okay, thank you.
And to say it a little different, so the capacity of the system we're designing is 2.7 times more than you're
That's
required.
right.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's also a functional design, so, we want to handle the whole roof, and then when I put it out here and put a trench drain, now I have to handle the whole driveway too. So the sizing is key to what am I actually managing. It just turns out that what I end up managing in this case, quite deliberately, is a lot more than what would be required by permit.
So can you clarify something for me?
Sure.
So the drainage system was placed in the front yard because of the trench system for the driveway?
No, because when you design a system like this, there's always an overflow that's in play for that extraordinary storm. When I put it in the front and have a trench drain at the end of the driveway, that trench drain becomes the overflow. If I had the system in the back, which I originally did, the overflow would have been the drain at the top of the wall. And so, for me, it seems a better design and less potential impact to a neighbor in the back who's already been impacted by the construction process to move this out to the front so that on the unusual case where we have an overflow condition, it's just flowing into the street.
So, so by placing it in the front yard like this, that becomes part of the steep slope disturbance?
No, actually, where we're putting the tanks is not within that. It's kind of
Okay.
hard to see
Just
on
a
this
tiny
plan, but it's
corner.
just outside of it.
Okay.
The steep slope disturbance is
Just purely this.
almost
this sidewalk.
primarily because of the front walk.
And maybe this isn't your purview, but that front walk, if you get to the second set of stairs from the house, that dark line, is that a patio?
This dark line
Yeah.
that comes, no, they're framing that side with a wall, just so that it's not sloped. They want to have sort of a level planting area that's around the house in the front there.
So is that currently done?
Because the grading drops off on that side.
Is that currently done?
No.
That wall has not been constructed
No.
yet.
So was that part of the original plan?
Yes.
So we're kind of stuck.
Well,
Because
I don't know.
we can't use the original plan because your plan is to put a decorative wall there. And if we don't approve the sidewalk, what do you do with the wall?
Well,
It
the
would be the
wall, the
same.
wall is part of the permit plan, so the only difference between.
So it
this-
is part of the original plan.
Yes, the only difference between this and the permit plan is the walk turning and going towards the driveway or coming straight out to the road.
And that would significantly reduce the steep slope disturbance if we
If
did
we
that.
turned and went straight to the driveway, that's right.
And really, the only reason we want the straight sidewalk is because we want it to look more formal.
Correct. It's an aesthetic, certainly.
I have one more question too. The X on this, is that where the 28-inch maple is? Or-
Right
or
there where the
oak tree?
pergola is,
Is
that's
that where that
correct.
tree is?
That's correct.
Any more questions from the board? Note that there is no public, so I'm not going to ask.
Just a quick question, if, with the tree, because that was called out, right? Would there be any other places to put the pool equipment? Is that what's requiring?
Well, the tree removal, it's square in the middle of the pergola that's there. The pool equipment's actually just behind the pergola.
Got it.
And I think you have to disturb that area anyway. You can't keep that tree, right, and have the pool,
No,
that you're gonna disturb
just-
the roots
no,
too
yeah.
much.
yeah.
So, again, I don't know if this is for you, or I guess that's the architect. I'm not sure.
No,
Oh,
we have
okay.
our landscape.
Was the pool in the original permit plan?
Yes.
Yes.
But in a different location,
Yeah,
correct?
it was in the back
Okay.
right.
And the patio and all that was in the original permit
The,
plan?
the patio adjacent to the house was all on the original permit.
I
That's
wasn't involved with,
Yeah.
were there any variances for the original permit
No.
plan?
right. No.
It was 999 square feet, right, almost 1,000 square feet steep slope disturbance. It's,
Well, it's the front that's killing you.
at this point, I think it was recommended, right, that they come and get the variance and, you know, look at what they can do to the stormwater and improve their plan as best as they can, since they were gonna have to come to the board anyway.
Any other
Just for everybody
questions?
else, question, is the front formal walkway very common on Lennox?
Lennox is, we were just talking about this. There's a considerable variety along Lennox in terms of the front yards and the presentation of the houses. You know, some of them are set a lot farther back, and so they don't have that walk because it's almost just too long. Some have like a loop drive that goes in front. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but there are some that do have that type of presentation.
Any other questions? Okay, can we go ahead and move to your next witness?
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
do you want me to talk about the trees real quick?
yes, can we, just one more question
We
for
do have
Andrew.
comments from the forester that I think bear quick commentary on. So the forester commented on the particular comment that I was addressing is there's a wall along the driveway sort of framing that right side of the driveway. It's about 2.5 feet at its highest point. But John Linson's comment, one of his comments was about some trees that are on the neighboring property and a concern as to whether they'd be impacted by the construction of the wall close to the line. I went back out and surveyed those, and that there's a double hemlock right where that number 8 is in there, and then a little bit lower down near where the 2-foot dimension is, there's another 10-inch hemlock, and then there's a couple larger pines. The hemlocks are about 9 feet off the line. The pine trees, which are bigger and more substantial, are about 16, 17 feet off the line. So I think we're okay with it, but in response to the comment, we've agreed that, we'll have an arborist look at those trees and evaluate whether or not there's anything we should be doing in terms of maintaining, and protecting the health of the trees on the neighboring property, and communicate with the neighbor on that, and address John's concerns in a meaningful way. So I just want to make sure we put that on the record.
So I was actually saving that question
Thank
for the landscape architect, so can we make that a condition that there will be further?
Certainly, I mean,
further
it's one of
consultation?
his comments, so, we agree to address that.
Yes, thank you. And I know it's late, does the board want to hear from the
Yeah, we're gonna
landscape
hear,
architect?
you've got 15 minutes and you're done.
Okay, let's be quick.
Mark Nissom with Harmony Design Group.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And restate your name.
Yes, Mark Nissom, Harmony Design Group, 1520 Pine Grove Avenue, Westfield, New Jersey.
All right, Morgan.
I'm a licensed landscape architect.
Give me
in this-
3 boards you've appeared before.
Sure, I've been before this board, Westfield, and Scotch Plains.
Accept credentials?
We accept your credentials, and she's got questions.
Okay. Do you have questions for me, or do you want me to just go?
Quick.
Okay, all right,
Just
so
go.
we were onboarded to do the landscape design for the property. We looked at the positioning of the pool in relationship to the living space in the house and the terrace the rear patio that was already approved. So shifting the pool over, which allowed them to have a little bit more flat lawn space and contiguous lawn space, also better visibility for their children. From inside the house to the kids swimming in the pool. So that facilitated the steep slopes or variance that our engineer testified to. The front walkway was a design, as we talked about, mostly from an aesthetic standpoint to give that formal center hall colonial look to the home. And the wall on this right side was already previously approved or in the site plans from the original design. We did provide plantings to privatize all the equipment on the side of the house. There's evergreen screening to that. The pool equipment is behind a wall, like a focal wall behind the pergola, and there's the green giant arborvitaes that are going to line the entire perimeter, which would provide privacy from the neighbors. But if additional plantings need to be adjacent to it, we can, of course, add a couple more evergreen shrubs as necessary. We do have a note on the plan regarding the arborist, John Linson's comment. I was in contact with him regarding bringing out an arborist on the client's behalf, and they've spoken to the neighbor about the concerns of the forester, and they'll work with the neighbor, and if remediation in terms of root feeding or air spading to like loosen the soil compaction potentially, if there's any compaction due to the construction of the wall that would adversely affect the roots on the trees, that would be coordinated with the neighbor. So that's been added, that note has been added to our plans to address that concern.
And then you added 3 shade trees,
Oh, yeah,
correct?
correct. Yes, with Mr. Linson's comment, we did add 3 more shade trees in the rear, 2 white oaks and a red maple. So all native shade trees to add additional shade trees as, as reflected by the town forester's comments.
Okay.
Any questions, professionals?
The only comment I would have is that the other consideration, in addition to the air spading, is possibly root pruning before you construct the wall.
Yes.
I have
Thank
no
you.
comments.
Okay.
So
Board
what-
members?
I'm sorry. So thank you, Chairman Steiner. What What prevents the roots from all these trees infiltrating the drainage system in the back against the wall?
The rear retaining wall?
Well, isn't the drainage system on top of the
It is
retaining
on
wall?
top, so you're saying the arborvitae's.
The roots of any of the shade
So-
trees or the arborvitae's?
Right, so honestly, I think you would have to come up to, but we have you have a filter fabric lining the trench, correct?
That's right.
So, so there's a fabric barrier between the soil and the stone and the gravel in the French drain. So that fabric would prevent the roots from infiltrating into that drainage condition.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
How big are the shade trees that you're putting in? What's the diameter of the,
So it's caliper, so 3 to 3.5 inch caliper, which is gonna be, I'm using my hands now, I'm gonna say it's a shade tree about 3 inches in diameter. It's measured a foot off the ground. That's how nursery stock is measured. So height-wise, that's gonna be about a 15-foot tall tree installed.
but the tree that's there now is 28-inch diameter, is that right? Is that what I read on there? Is that-
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why we're
You are
proposing many.
complying with the replacement ordinance, I think, before we added those trees, right?
More
This is kind
than,
of
more than, because of all the
additional.
green giants. Yeah, we have 79 green giants going in, plus additional other trees that were already on the plan, shade trees and native trees addressing, some of the
So
concerns.
how many trees totally have you, that are added in this plan? Not just this plan, but the whole plan?
Oh, okay.
You know, because we're talking about a variance plan and
That
a
one.
other plan.
7,
Because I think that,
8, 9, 10, 11 plus 79, so that's 79, 80, 90 trees total.
okay. Other
Compared to
questions?
the other landscape architect on the numbers.
But you're saying some of those were part of the original
Right,
plan?
part of
so
the-
Some of
that-
those were for
yeah.
trees that were already
Because,
approved to be
I mean,
removed.
when you go
by
out there, there's no trees.
Yeah, right.
If you went out there, there were
I
no
did,
trees.
I did.
There
Except for
will
the
be
maple.
trees.
The one maple, or oak, what is it? Oak,
There, hopefully
28
there'll
inch
be
oak.
there'll be 90 trees when we're
Yeah.
done. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if this is, maybe I should have asked the engineer. The whole front yard's gonna be regraded?
Slightly, right? There are a lot of steps.
Yeah, it's in accommodation for the walkway installation, so it's not a dramatic regrading, so it's not like some of these projects where we're tiering with walls and that sort of thing. It's leveling, sort of evening the grade a little bit as we install the stairs.
Because right now, it's like all dead, if I remember correctly, it's just like dirt.
That-
So it's really
it
basically, it's
is
basically
now, yes.
regraded anyway.
They cut a couple of the utilities
Dead
in the
and-
front
dead
there.
and rocks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why it looks that way now.
Okay. Other questions for this witness? Not asking the public. Where, do you have a summation for us?
I do not, unless you need a little summary of the
No, I
variances,
don't
can
mind
convert
stay,
them.
not taking the time.
Okay.
I have a question, but it's kind of out of order. The original plan that had the pool, was the pool the same size in the original plan? When the pool was in the right corner? Or did the pool get bigger?
Yes.
Mr. Clark's head is nodding, so he's agreeing with you. It's the
Yes.
same size, it was in the right side instead of the left side.
Here comes a drawing.
Okay, got me. So the original pool was 20 by
Yes.
40, and the new pool is proposed as
Exactly the same.
20 by 45.
I don't think that mic's on.
Oh,
Yeah, it's 20 by 45.
I don't think that microphone is on.
Is it not?
Is the green light on? Okay.
Yeah, 20 by 45 is the proposed pool. They do have a child that's on the swim team in
Yeah,
town.
our 10-year-old just made the swim team at the Summit Y, so we, as part of that, he's gonna be swimming laps, so we extended the pool 5 feet because we had the room.
And does that include the whole surface area around the pool too? Did that change? I mean, all the
the patio
The patio and
surface, you're
everything,
you're
yeah.
talking about the
Yeah, to the
impervious
whole, yeah, to
coverage.
the, yeah, can you take that whole little thing and put it in the
This
corner?
bubble.
Yeah, or did everything,
Um, 1 second, I don't know the answer to that question. We're doing lot coverage calculations in the back right now.
Well, the patio's probably
We're
5 feet
compliant
longer.
with coverage, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it's only steep.
Yeah,
slope.
the pool surround, the pergola was the same size, the pool surround is like 70 square feet more, mainly because of the dimensional change in the pool.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will move towards no summation from you. Anything that you as the applicants would like to say in closing? As long as your attorney isn't going to, we'll give you the option.
No, just thank you. Thank you for the time.
Okay. We will go into executive session, but first we will ask for conditions and the number of votes that are required.
Well, you only need 4 votes because it's just a C variance. That's good. And I have 4 conditions, as it turns out. 1, the drainage plan will be revised as explained by Mr. Clark at the time of the hearing and is to be reviewed and approved by the board's engineer. All pool mechanicals, the AC, and the generator are to be screened per the ordinance. 3, the grading plan is to be updated and submitted to the board engineer for her review and approval. And 4, the applicant is to retain a consulting arborist to evaluate any impact on the neighbor's trees that are located within 16 feet of the property line along the driveway. They will discuss this disturbance with the neighbors and suggest tree-save measures to protect those trees.
And 5 is our traditional one that they accept the engineer's report, which is made a part thereof.
Got it.
Who would like to start the discussion tonight? Don, you're up.
Can I make a comment first?
No.
Sure, yeah.
No, I was, when I started here, it was probably 20 years ago. And right around that time, somebody brought in truckloads and truckloads of dirt to make a building go up into the air so they could see Manhattan. And the governing body realized what a terrible idea that was, and they wanted to make sure that nobody else would do that, and that's why they created the steep slope ordinance. And in the time that I did serve this board, every time we had a steep slope case, our focus was on making sure that it was aesthetically correct, that the steep slope was stabilized, and that we improved the drainage conditions. So I think those are the things that we should be focused on, that the strict compliance with the steep slope ordinance is not the same type of ordinance as, say, coverage or setback or density or size of the structure. Just wanted to give you that background, because when you're trying to test out their missing, why they have a miss, we have to see, I think we should be giving some consideration to, are they doing those other things that make this property work? And the other thing that I noted was that, although they told me that just inside of it, that if this was a flat piece of land, it complies with the coverage requirements. So don't, put those two things together. That's all. I just thought that'd be helpful for you.
Well said, Mr. Galvin. Thank you.
Oh, please.
I just thought of another condition that we might want to add, and that is to retain, especially as we're dealing with a neighbor that already had a problem, that we retain
Stormwater.
jurisdiction on stormwater for 2 years. Is that acceptable?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
I've made it.
Thank you. So we'll add that. Don, I
Thanks.
started with you.
Thanks, Chairman. I appreciate it.
You've been talking all year. It's time.
Great. I'll be quiet next time. I can support this application. I was originally a little skeptical about it. And I'm not blaming these applicants at all, believe me. But one of the things that I don't like is, when plan submitted, it's approved, and then we come back and then there's more variances required because it almost seems like things are intentionally left out. I don't like that, but I don't, that being said, I don't think that's the case here. I would be a little happier if the stairs the front stairs went the way they were originally designed, but I can still support the project. I walked that street many times a couple of weeks ago for other reasons, and it's basically flat now anyway from the construction equipment, so it's not a big deal. I can support it, and the drainage system's going to be hopefully a vast improvement to what is there now. Although I guess what's there now is Mother Nature, and I don't know how we can improve on Mother Nature, but we're going to try. So I can support this project. So I vote yes.
Yeah, following up on what Mr. Nelson said, I too can support this application. Clearly, they're here because of a design change, so I don't think they're coming to ask for forgiveness like we've seen
Right.
a few too many times, right, Don? I also believe that steep slope disturbance should be a proportion of a site. So I don't know that almost an acre site should be treated the same way as a 10,000 square foot site, but that's for us to deliberate as we go down the line. So I think the public benefit is clear. This is going to vastly improve stormwater management for this site. So that's reason enough for me.
Yeah, I can support it as well for the same reasons. They've gone above and beyond in terms of stormwater management. I do want to ask one question. It has nothing to do with deliberations, and it's nothing to do with the application. But the Historic Preservation Commission noted that they weren't notified of this demolition and they were supposed to have been. That's something they did, I assume? Is that something, I don't recall that ever happened before.
I honestly don't know.
Okay. I just want to make sure it was on the record that.
What we'll do is we'll ask Stephanie to follow up and get
But, I
back to
mean,
the,
like I
get
said,
back to
that's
them and let them know.
Nothing the applicant did, that's.
Yes, and it doesn't affect our
Building department that's supposed to
deliberations.
That's a new,
tick that box.
that's a new thing.
Correct.
Yes. And
Anyway,
then-
but I can support the application. I think the steep slope variance, it's not, we've had some much more extreme steep slope variances lately. This one seems reasonable given the circumstances. And like I said, very effective stormwater management to go along with it. I can support it.
Yeah, I actually like this one for a number of reasons. Moving the pool to me is, believe it or not, a safety issue. If the parents can see the summit seal swimming back and forth and his
That's
friends
right.
or her friends and all the friends that get to come over and, what's it, 4 seconds, something happens and, we regret it for the rest of our lives. So moving that pool makes sense to me. Than rather than having it over by the driveway where it's closer to the ambulance, but that's not who we want. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of good portions here, and safety is one of them. I would look for a motion to approve if someone would like to so make
So
one.
moved.
Second.
Vice Chairman Loikett,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Malay, Chairman Steiner.
Yes,
The motion carries.
Thank you.
and again, make sure everybody will read those resolutions.
Thank you again for staying so late as well. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, we are going to continue our meeting because we still have some business to do. Resolutions.
So the first resolution for memorialization we have is 10 Waldron Avenue. That's Block 2608, Lot 29, ZB-24-2232, Peter and Kristen Toohill. The eligible voting members are Chairman Loikett, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, Ms. Chifo, and Mr. Chanchuli. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Or second, whichever.
All right, I'll take Mr. Nelson as the motion, and the second will be Mr. Yuko. Okay, Chairman Loikett,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Loikett, sorry.
It's okay.
Getting late. You get me. Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Yes.
The motion carries. The next one we have is 2 Woodmere Drive, Block 2103, Lot 18, ZB-24-2259, Thomas and Gretchen Oatman. The eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, Ms. Chifo, Mr. Chanchuli.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure thing.
Wasn't there a memo about some clarification between construction being done and not being done on this was this the property?
For this one?
Yeah, did I misread that? Is that gonna be a problem, or no? I don't wanna make it more of a problem than it needs to be, but,
We can hold it for,
no, I'm comfortable with it, I just wanted to make sure I understood, that's all.
you'd have to tell them, because I was off that day.
Well, didn't I just see, I don't have my phone with me, didn't something just come out from Andrew Ball about, there was a clarification for the,
There was something, yeah.
Did he just update the resolution, was it? I don't recall.
maybe I just misread it.
Yes, there was an update on that resolution, but
Okay.
we're voting on the revised resolution.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine, yep,
that's-
okay, good,
okay.
then I wanna go to more, yeah.
Okay.
It was for 174 Springfield.
Yeah, that was, oh, but it was updated.
Then I have the wrong one, then, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it's for,
Okay.
to Woodmere.
Okay, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Okay. Okay, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second?
Okay. Vice Chairman Loiketz,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Yes.
The motion carries. The next one we have is 174 Springfield Avenue. So we're okay with this one, right? It was just, he updated it. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. That's Block 3401, Lot 52, ZB-24-2257, Ryan Horvath and Katie Prinz. The eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Toth, and Mr. Chanchuli. Can we have a motion?
So moved?
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. Vice Chairman Loiketz?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Yes.
The motion carries.
We have a request from the Burgermeisters to extend their resolution for another year. They're requesting a one-year extension of the approval in order to properly prepare for construction. This would then get them to the 2 years that we've been granting on a regular basis. So we have a resolution prepared by our attorney to do this and would look for a motion on it.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Chairman Steiner?
Yes?
Vice Chairman Loiketz?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Kieran?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we have minutes from November the 4th,
Okay.
all 8 pages of them.
I know, they're getting a little long there.
She's getting longer
I
and
know,
longer.
I'm sorry.
It's
Do
taking you
apologize.
more and more days.
Seriously. Okay.
You need a motion.
Yes, but we are going to exclude the members who were excused that day, which were Vice Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Feskins, and Ms. Chifo. Can we have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Okay, we need a motion to go into executive session. You guys are,
Thank you very much.
we are not going to handle the RFQs tonight, so.
Okay, very good.
No, you know, if anybody's asking you about it tomorrow, the answer is we didn't touch it.
Thank you very much. Have a great holiday.
Thank you, guys.
Too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Enjoy your bird. Okay,
We should,
what?
we're gonna have to improve that.
What?
When you move into
Yes, we have to
executive
have, we need a motion.
session, not only that, but you need a formal resolution that you should be signing.
we got.
Okay, we've not done that in the past.
All right.
Um,
And why are we going to move into executive session?
For policy and procedures.
Um,
Discussion of policy and procedures as listed on our agenda.
Okay, so whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, NJSA 10:4-12 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and now therefore be resolved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the City of Summit, the public shall be excluded from the discussion of policies and procedures, and the minutes of this executive session will be disclosed when the specific subject matter is resolved. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move to executive session, is that
Yeah,
what needs to be
that's
said?
good.
Good.
Second?
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed?
Joe, does our
Okay.
TV guy know to shut down?
Pardon?
I turned it
Yeah,
off.
hopefully he's done that.
I turned it off.
Okay, so.